one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Commissioners meeting for Monday, September 8th, 2014. We will start with public participation, and I'd like to remind you that we have a 5-minute rule, so after 5 minutes you'll be asked to wrap up, and please give your name and your address when you come to the mic. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Gloria Jean Falcone. My address is 275 South Bryn Mawr Avenue, South Bryn Mawr Avenue, apartment B26, Bryn Mawr. I've been a resident in Radnor 25 plus years. I also work as a mental health professional in a neighboring school district. And my concern today is to inform Radnor residents to please explore other options or consider other avenues if the need arises that a loved one is in an emergency, critical condition, and needs to be transported to a hospital. I live 2 blocks from the hospital. My 911 call, and I will read what I stated for my 911 call, but I first like to let you know that I was informed that the police officer on duty was at my home for 32 minutes. I also was told that this was inaccurate when I met with a committee. I believe it was the Radnor Township manager, who I do give credit to, and I will speak to that at the end. Also, the chairman committee of the ambulance, and also the supervisor of the EMTs. First and foremost, the officer says that he spoke with me that morning, who stated that I woke up in the morning and found my loved one semi-conscious and foaming at the mouth. The officer also said that responses from my loved one were nothing intelligible, but it was believed on items at the scene, and I'm not mentioning those items right now, that that's why he was in the condition he was in. I wrote an addendum to that report because that was falsified. I was also told that, again, his date of his time was incorrect. He says that he arrives at 9:13 and he was cleared by 9:45 at my home. I called 911 at 9:09, and I also have that they were cleared at 9:45. No one who was foaming at the mouth and bleeding profusely should be on the ground of an apartment floor, remaining there, and with me screaming, "Please get him out of my home." This is what I wrote. I, Gloria Jean Falcone, telephone 911 on January 18th, 2014 at 9:09 a.m. after finding my partner semi-conscious. I reported that he was found by me in the morning after I woke up. His condition was bleeding from mouth, eyes, and nose, as well as foaming at the mouth, and a distorted face which was swollen, and his left lip going upward. He was able to tell the officer on duty his name and responded no when asked if he had any alcohol in his system. I gave the officer his prescription drugs, which were 6 prescription drugs ordered by 2 doctors, who I will not say their names because they are being dealt with accordingly. They are also being investigated at this time with higher powers than me. The EMTs arrived right after the police officer arrived and transported my loved one to the hospital. But time was wasted by the EMTs by the questioning of my loved one. It was clear to me that he needed oxygen and the hospital's attention immediately. I live 2 minutes from the hospital. An autopsy verified that my partner had no alcohol in his system. He only had the prescription meds in his system that day. And how sad it is that a man who could hardly breathe was made to continue responding to questions. He died within the hour. I was informed by the hospital. I was not told by the EMTs. They first told me when I saw a pillowcase drenched with blood, "Oh, he only vomited." I was not told, "Maybe you should follow me." So you can imagine the shock in 45 minutes that he passed. I was also told by hospital personnel that, and I'm mentioning this because I was told by the EMT supervisor that I can't let this go and I can't move forward, and I'm angry at everyone. Well, everyone's story is different, including the doctor who said, "No, I did not tell you over the phone." Then he later admitted, "Yes, I did." "No, I only gave him Narcan." Well, turns up that he also gave him more Xanax. When I say that I witnessed the EMTs being negligent, I don't take that word lightly. When I had a meeting with the Radnor committee, which included the chairman, which included the supervisor of the EMTs, and Mr. Sikowski, who I mentioned his name because I give credit where credit is due. This is the death certificate of 6 prescription medications that were ordered by these 2 doctors that are being investigated, one for 2 years. And how many more people have to die? This is running rampant in the main line. And so I don't understand why I was told, first of all, when I was at a meeting, the chairman was rolling his eyes. I thought he was going to twist his neck over. He had an attitude. He felt that he didn't really have to answer any of these questions. I didn't ask to break the HIPAA law because I was with my partner 19 years. I am filing for common law. But to be able to roll your eyes and then tell me that they've seen horrific things in the field. Number one, when I deal with a family member of my students and I am at a table, I don't care if it's board members, just the family alone, I am there for that student and that student only. I am not there to talk about other issues in the field and of other classmates, period.
Ms. Falcone, it's been 5 minutes. I just want to let you know.
Okay. So one question is, I would like to know if this is going to be investigated at all, because the EMTs were not even at the meeting. And one more thing that I'd like to say, I have emails because of the chairman getting so frustrated. I had 2 more questions. I emailed the EMTs, what was my partner's oxygen level at the time that you've seen him, because he arrived at the hospital with a 42. There was no oxygen mask on him, no sirens, and I can't move on. So what happens? Are they talked to, or is it not that what I am saying is not true? This is what I witnessed. I don't have a lying bone in my body, and I was there. I had to witness this, no one else.
Okay. First of all, I want to say we're very sorry for your loss. And thank you for coming in. I'm sure this is very difficult to get up in front of a room like this over this tragedy. This is not exactly the venue that we would make these decisions or have these answers for you. However, our township manager is aware of this situation, and he is working very hard to make sure that it is taken care of and addressed fully and with utmost of competence. So thank you for bringing it to all of our attention. It is in front of the attention of our township manager. And again, we all really give you our condolences.
Thank you. Then I'm going to ask for another meeting with the committee, with the manager and the committee that I had to get the answers to, because I'm just turned away. They won't answer. They will not answer my emails. I have my emails. They won't even answer. Can you simply tell me that you're receiving my questions? That's unacceptable. I couldn't do it in the township that I'm in, nor would I want to as a professional.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment at the beginning of the meeting? Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Jane Galley. I live at 143 Barclayton Road. And my question tonight, or my statement tonight, has to do with the one-sided parking in our area, which has been proposed. We did do a study on Barclayton Road and Barclayton Circle. I guess the circle got exempted from the parking restriction because there wasn't a problem with it for the fire department. I would like to know whether this is going to be addressed by the entire township having roads that are small and evidently is a problem for fire trucks to get through, or I still can't understand why we're being singled out, since a lot of the residents, we ran around and did petitions and asked whether A, anybody knew about it, and B, what they thought. Most of the residents in our area, in the Conestoga Village area, did not want one-sided parking for many reasons. And I don't understand why we're being singled out in our area for having roads that are less than 24 feet or 28 feet, which I guess is the norm. Whereas we just watched the township say, oh, sure, this new big development can have smaller roads than 24, 28 feet, which is supposed to be the norm. I feel that if you're going to do it in the small area, you got to do it through the whole township. And I still think, I don't understand why it's such a big deal in our area, since it was never a problem before. I understand the trucks from Lower Merion are wider than they were before, but you know, they're still making the calls to the houses, and the EMTs are still getting to the homes. I just want to know if the township is going to start taking care of all this all over. Are you going to widen all our roads? Are you going to put in sidewalks? What are you going to do? That's where I am at the moment. So I'm here representing Barclayton Road, Circle, DeBarron. DeBarron is the most concerned because we have Villanova students that come flying through our neighborhood and are going to take out a kid. And I'm not sure which the more likelihood that is the child getting hit than a house that can't get some kind of fire apparatus to it. And that's my worry is children, and you know, the fire truck can be at each end and make it easily to the middle with their hoses, which they've been doing for, I don't know, 75 years. So that's where I am. I just want to know if the entire township is going to be looked at, or are we the sample case type of thing?
I don't have an answer for you, but I'm sure we can look into it and get back to you.
And just so everyone knows, that is coming back to staff traffic this month. Lieutenant Block, what is the date? Is it September 16th?
Commissioner, it'll be September 17th, Wednesday
17th.
morning at 10 a.m. It'll be reviewed again in the police roll call room.
Right. But
Okay, so noted. I'll make sure I email that out to my constituents.
Minutes will be going out this week, or the agenda, rather.
Okay.
Perfect. But FYI, is everyone else worried about the fire trucks? That's my basic question in this whole thing. So, thank you very much for your time.
And just so everyone is aware, it all originated with a complaint from the fire department claiming they did not have adequate access to a neighborhood. And it's been under review by the Staff Traffic Committee for about a year now. We did put temporary restrictions in place, and from all accounts, the access has greatly improved. But we still haven't heard from the public back from their opinion of what it was like having the restricted access. So we're waiting on that for the meeting.
And I'll just mention, years ago, the fire department came to me and said Morningside Circle, Landmore, and Kirsch are parking both sides of the street. We can't get a fire truck around the corner. Neighbors didn't like it, but we did put parking on one side of the street in that community so fire trucks could access that community.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who would like to give some public comment before we begin? Hello, Mr. Harrington.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Chet Harrington, Newtown Road. There will be appropriate comments to be made by the Radnor Taxpayers Association at a given time. I don't think this is the time to make those comments. We just want to go on record as saying that several of our Radnor Taxpayers Associates would like to address this group at the proper time this evening, and you can tell us when that proper time is.
That matter, the Ardrossan preliminary approval will be up a little bit later in the agenda, and there will be public comment before we take any vote.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay, I'd like to announce that we had an executive session immediately preceding this meeting on September 8th, 2014, at which we discussed matters of personnel, litigation, and real estate. Next, we have a consent agenda of 3 items. This is a method by which we approve several items at once that don't really merit a lot of debate. They're a little perfunctory in nature, so we just do them all at once. However, before we do that, we give the commissioners and the public a chance to take anything out of that agenda if you would like discussion about it. Is there anyone on the board who would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Is there anybody from the public who would like to remove an item?
Move the approval of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved by a vote of 7-0. Next, we have our committee reports. We will start with Public Safety and Commissioner Spengler.
Yes, I'll move the approval of Ordinance 2014-10.
Second.
Is there any commissioner comment on this item?
This is final approval for this,
Yes.
and we did the preliminary, what, a month ago?
No, we introduced it. This is the adoption. No comment? Is there any comment from our staff? Any comment from the public? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
It passes 6-1. Next, we'll move on to Personnel and Administration with Commissioner Fisher.
We have the adoption of Ordinance 2014-06. This is the Willows lease agreement between Radnor Township and the Willows Radnor LLC. And I will ask Solicitor Rice to introduce this topic to us again.
Thank you, Commissioner Fisher. The board had a discussion at your last meeting, at which time the ordinance was up for introduction. The board introduced it. You made some changes to the lease agreement, which have been incorporated into this draft. And it's before the board for further action. Mr. Falcone is here representing the proposed lessee, Willows Radnor LLC. This sets forth the terms of the lease agreement. There will be another step in this process before work actually occurs. There'll be borrowing by the lessee, and then there will be permits and plans that the township would have to approve before any work occurs. The lessee would post financial security with the township, and there would be a separate construction agreement which would spell out the terms and conditions of the work, the timing of the work, and a timeline within which that work has to be done. So it's up for final adoption tonight. I don't know if the board has any further issues or discussion regarding this, either on the lease itself or with Mr. Falcone.
John, I just wanted to confirm, we were to get the partnership docs, the articles of incorporation and whatnot for the LLC prior to executing this lease. Do we have those in hand yet?
I don't have those. They were not sent.
No, they weren't. The final documents are prepared, but they haven't been delivered to Mr. Rice.
Okay. So, John, will we, obviously, we may vote on this tonight, but before that lease is signed by the board president, I would like to make sure that you review those documents and are satisfied with the representations.
That the entity exists.
Yeah.
And has been properly incorporated.
Yeah.
And this is the same entity that's going to have to sign the construction agreement, John. So
I agree. Yeah, I understand.
But
Yep.
that's certainly a good condition to attach.
Is there any other commissioner comment?
Well, one question, John, just are you concerned that the entity has never been formed and that was your concern, or are you looking for a specific type of entity? This is an LLC, so is this is going to be an LLC that will be a partnership or will be a corporation for federal tax purposes?
Well, as far as this lease goes, I'm not sure if that's really any concern of the board, but it will be
No,
taxed.
wait. Hold on. That's absolutely the concern of the landlord.
Well, no, so we're formed. We're a proper entity with the state. And
I just want to make
sure.
I asked for these documents
Understood.
several times.
But what we're taxed as, we're
Yeah, I don't care about
taxed
that
as a
so much.
partnership. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure that's relevant. But
we need to know. We're talking
formed.
about a fictitious entity in the state of Pennsylvania. I would like to see the articles of incorporation, the partnership documents, the partnership agreement, if there is one between members.
Well, it'll be an operating agreement.
Operating
it'll be a
agreement.
single member
That's
operating
right.
agreement.
Single member, okay.
Yeah, LLC.
Yep.
It's
So
been formed.
It's a single member LLC?
Yes,
disregarded for federal tax purposes.
it is.
One other question. Paragraph G8, WRL shall be responsible to pay any business privilege and mercantile taxes assessed by Radnor Township as a result of this lease.
I'm sorry, a section, I'm sorry, I missed that.
G8,
Okay,
miscellaneous.
Real estate taxes.
okay.
No, it says business privilege or mercantile taxes assessed by Radnor Township. Now, my understanding of business privilege and mercantile taxes is you're subject to them, you file a return. Does this mean we have to do an assessment after a review of the income? Is that what this is trying to say? Or is this intended to be anything different, or is this just language that
This is no different than any other business that would be operating in the township
right
for BPT
All
or
right.
mercantile.
Here's the
Yeah.
they will file, and
Yeah.
we won't, if you're going to require the finance department to assess business privilege mercantile tax, that's my question. And you're saying that that's not the case. They will file in accordance with the procedures for all other business privilege and mercantile tax payers.
Yes. They're not going to be treated any differently if there's any real estate tax increase. It's on them.
Well, this is not real, but I'm talking about the business privilege and mercantile
Right,
tax.
right.
Any other comments or questions? Can we have a motion for this approval?
I'll move the approval of the ordinance 2014-06.
I'll second that.
Any staff comment? Any public comment?
I'm going to vote against it. I stated my reasons in the past. I think we're sacrificing too much of a park and getting partial use of a building. So for me, this is a mistake.
Similarly, while I voted for the agreement, I think the contract, that lease is about as good as we could get right now. The concept to me is not consistent with a township role in providing township property to a private entity for profit use. So I'm also opposed to the concept.
All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
And it passes 5-2. And Mr. Falcone, I see the principals aren't here, but if you could please express that we're very enthusiastic about moving forward with this. It's been a long process, but I believe it's going to be a good partnership, a great partnership, and we're going to bring that beautiful mansion back to its grace and grandeur that it deserves.
I spoke to Glenn shortly before the meeting, and he was optimistic the vote would be positive and wanted me to express to the board that he is anxious to get going and will do a good job, and I'm sure he will.
Great.
So we'll be seeing you, I'm sure, as the process unfolds, but thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, next we will move to Public Works and Engineering. Commissioner Higgins.
Yes, we've had a request from the owners of property on Bloomingdale Avenue, represented by George Brosman. This is a development of townhouses and preserving an existing Victorian house. I see Mr. Brosman's here now with his architect or engineer? Engineer. Okay.
I'd just like to clarify for anyone watching or in the audience, this is really just a presentation. This is not part of a formal introduction or submission. So there won't be any voting tonight.
Good evening. I'm George Brosman. As Mr. Higgins indicated, I represent the equitable owner of the properties at 120 and 124 Bloomingdale Avenue. As Commissioner Schaefer noted, there's no applications that have been filed for this with the township. We're just here to give information to the Board of Commissioners and hopefully to get some feedback on a concept that has been developed for the potential redevelopment of this property. The property is zoned R5 Residence District. It's along Bloomingdale Avenue, and it's also in the South Wayne Historic District. We're here this evening to go over the concept that we have. We did make a similar presentation to the Radnor Township Historical and Architectural Review Board last Wednesday on September 3rd because the property is in the historic district. And you could see that on video if you didn't watch it, but I believe we got a pretty positive response from the HARB members, and there were some neighbors in attendance at that meeting. But to fill you in on what we're looking at, the property along Bloomingdale Avenue, Lancaster Avenue would be off over to this area. You proceed down Bloomingdale Avenue. This is a proposed plan that I'll get into, but there's one property here, number 1, that is a historic building. It's a art gallery now. It was originally a single-family dwelling. And then there's another building over on this part of the property that the HARB confirmed is a non-contributing resource to the South Wayne Historic District. And I have an aerial here. I don't know if Jim could blow it up. So the building we would save is the Newman and Sanders Galleries here. The building that would be demolished is the building that I'm pointing to now, closer to the intersection of West Wayne Avenue and Bloomingdale Avenue. There's a photograph of the property to be demolished here, labeled 124 Bloomingdale, and the building to be saved I'm pointing to now is 120 Bloomingdale Avenue. There is an architect involved. He is not here, but he presented this to the HARB. It's Jim Bradbury, and he made a very nice presentation and spoke about the different buildings. But as you can see, 124 Bloomingdale doesn't really look like many of the other buildings. It's of a different character. It's been altered. And most importantly, as I said, the HARB had indicated that it is non-contributing to the historic district. So the proposal would be to demolish that building. It's currently used as a multi-tenant office building, and you can see there's a driveway and a parking area to the rear. The plan would be to demolish that building, add in its general location 2 additional single-family dwellings in the front along Bloomingdale that would complement the existing building to be retained. By doing that, the commercial uses would be eliminated. This is an R5 residence district, and those commercial uses of both properties are non-conforming and not permitted under the zoning. So we feel that eliminating the commercial uses and going back to residential will be an improvement for the area. There was a lot of talk at the HARB meeting about how the developer and the architect have designed these 2 dwellings along Bloomingdale to try to match the streetscape of the existing dwelling and the pattern along the historic pattern along Bloomingdale. To the rear of the property, we would propose 2 multiple family buildings. They would be high-end carriage homes, 3 units in each of the 2 buildings. This is a, now we're too small, Jim will reduce it for me. This is a concept for the single-family buildings out on the front along Bloomingdale. They would attempt to complement the building that is being preserved here at 120 Bloomingdale. We got a lot of good feedback from the HARB about some things they liked about this design, some things they wanted to see improvement on. I remember one of the comments was that they preferred that the 2 dwellings in the front not mimic one another, to have a more different style, sympathetic to the district, but not to mimic one another. And the developer indicated that he would examine that and would do that. Designs have not been prepared for the multifamily in the back, but we discussed concepts for that with the HARB, and the developer was basically willing to implement some of the things they were looking for. They would be varied, articulation along the front, so they would fit in well. The sketch plan that we've prepared that was in your package shows how we stack up against the R5 residence district zoning, and it shows that the uses are permitted uses, and it shows that we would meet the permissible density and impervious coverage and things like that. We would be under the permitted impervious coverage. And as I said, I think a big plus of this plan is the elimination of the non-conforming commercial uses and turning it back to residential. We believe would lessen the impact on the neighborhood and also be more appropriate for that side of Bloomingdale Avenue. If we, or when we move forward with this project, we'll have to come before the township with an official land development application, land development plans, and we'll also have to appear before HARB and request from the commissioners, upon recommendation from HARB, a certificate of appropriateness for the work that we're doing here in the historic district. But as I said, we felt like we were off to a good start just informally with HARB, and we're committed to working with them to make sure this fits in with the historic district. So it ends up being a total of 9 units. As I said, there's two commercial buildings there now, one with multi-tenants. Under the permitted density, I came up with that 10 units would be allowed in the R5. So this is showing 9, the 3 single families in the front and the 6 multiple families in the back. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer questions or hear your input. The parking, 2 per unit, is required, and the plan anticipates 2 garage units for the multiple family and for these 2 homes. And this unit here, there's existing 2 spaces in this general area that would be maintained, although I'm told the developer is still working on the concepts for that unit and might be doing something different as far as garage spaces there. And then there's 2 additional spaces here, so I believe we show a small surplus of parking
so
from what's required by code.
The garage units for the attached dwellings would be, first-story garage and then the living space above?
That's right. Mm-hmm. I'm told not necessarily above, some above. There might also be some on the same level with the garages. As I said, those units haven't been designed yet. Mm-hmm. We wanted to come in front of HARB and the board informally before we got too far along with the design, so we didn't want to get off on the wrong track before we got input.
Have you met with or had discussions with the neighboring property owners for their input, or?
We met with some of the neighboring property owners that were at the HARB meeting, and there has been some discussion with other of the neighbors, but we have not met with all of the neighbors in the area yet. We would intend to do that.
Could I ask, George, what you referred to the developer, what is his or her name?
It's the Benson Companies.
All right, is that Mr. Erickson?
Yes.
Okay, so is he going to be running this project?
That's what I believe. We're so early on, but right now they're doing the project.
And forgive me for asking some basic questions here, but at the intersection of West Wayne and Bloomingdale, there is a building that's set back quite a bit. Is that the ophthalmologist's office building?
You mean here?
No, keep moving up. Yeah, there.
This, I believe, is Mr. Gemmer's residence.
Oh.
I think the ophthalmologist would be
the building
here.
coming out.
Okay. And another basic question. What's on this parcels now? You have you mentioned 2 commercial buildings.
That's right. If we could expand this again. So this is the block of Bloomingdale. In question, Newman and Saunders Galleries is the first building, which is this building here that would be preserved. And the second building is, I called it a multi-tenant office building There's different offices in there now, and there's a driveway and parking area to the rear of that, and then Newman Saunders Gallery has its own driveway and some parking. That's what's on the properties currently.
But you're gaining a lot of ground here. Where is that coming from?
Well, the lots include all this land, the 2 lots.
So it's open space now?
Well, you can see on the aerial, it's a little hard to see. There's some open areas, and there's the parking areas and driveways and the 2 structures. It's 2 separate lots currently, 1 structure on each.
Bill, is this the property that we had a big battle to try to save?
No, that's blocked down.
That's a block down.
This is where the eye doctor was, the eye doctor was in Newman Galleries.
Yeah.
Between Lenore and Westway.
Okay.
This is your ward, Commissioner Curley. Have you had any feedback from your constituents?
I'm sure nobody likes it. Nobody likes replacing 2 properties with 9. So I did meet with the developer, and we chatted about some of the things. I think there's a trade-off here. Obviously, the maintaining the streetscape in a period appropriate way is a positive. So that's positive. I think it's very important, or I'm going to sense that it's going to be very important to make sure that the backs of the homes aren't on Bloomingdale. That the way this is drawn, the front of the home would be on Proposed Drive, and the back would be on Bloomingdale. So my sense is that the Bloomingdale has to be maintained as a front to create that streetscape, that residential streetscape that's period appropriate for the street. I'm sure there's going to be some buffering concerns. There's a lot of neighbors around there that will be affected. And then the trade-off of replacing commercial with residential, I think, will be viewed positive. I've had some positive feedback on that. So right now, I'd say it's a mix, but the 9 units in place of 2 is going to be very, very difficult to make the surrounding people happy about that particular item.
Do we have any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Well, it just, I guess we'll wait until this comes to us, but I mean, the proposed drive to me is in addition to, not in lieu of access. Here we go again. I mean, we were just talking about it an hour ago. A 22-foot cartway with a very tight turning radius servicing the front of these homes. It doesn't appear to have any extra I mean, there's a few extra parking spaces, so if any one of those residents has a party, those cars are going to park on that lane. I mean, we're not going to be able to enforce it. We continuously do this, and I'm really getting fed up. I'm getting fed up to the point where some commissioner 10, 15 years down the road is going to be fighting the same issues that I'm fighting in my neighborhood, where the police and fire department have trouble getting to the homes, and this is a really good example of that. This is, in my opinion, completely unacceptable. I'll never support this plan the way it is. If those homes were turned around and the fronts of those homes were on the street on the other side, and then this drive was a secondary access, that might be acceptable to me, because then the police and fire departments would have 2 methods of getting to those properties. But as a primary access, it doesn't seem right to me. And the turning radius, I don't know what it is, but it looks awfully sharp. And if you can imagine, if there was a fire, once one piece of apparatus is on that lane, there are no more trucks getting on that lane. It's over. So we have an issue. I think we all have to start thinking about this. I think when there's a fire, we're all going to look back and say, what were we thinking? We didn't even, we didn't do what was in the best interest of the public safety.
Okay, George, this is a R5 zone?
That's right.
So, but you have nine houses. You said it conformed with the zoning? You have 9 units?
Yeah, under the R5, you basically need, for the multiple family, I believe the number is 5,445 square feet per unit. And for the single family, it's 5,500 square feet per unit. The lot area is about 58,000 square feet, so it divides out to be about 10 units, I think is what the math would show, and 9 are shown on this sketch.
It's a little more than an acre site, acre and a quarter, something like that.
Yeah, when you put the two properties together, yes.
I would also say, could you have the engineer check that north arrow? I think that might be, I think it's going the wrong way, or else it's difficult to get the orientation, but have them check that north arrow. It might be.
We can check that. but
Yeah, it might.
For orientation, Lancaster Avenue is, it's not showing on the screen here, but
I see it. I see it at this point.
That way.
What about the why not? So Don's point was that the frontage, those lower dwellings there, they're not facing Bloomingdale Ave.
This is what we. This is essentially what we showed to Harb, and it was very important. To Harb, and we stressed it. South elevation facing Bloomingdale Avenue, so they are designed that their front will be facing Bloomingdale, and that was an important thing that the developer wanted to do. He wants to create this streetscape along Bloomingdale, so I think the township will be very pleased with that, and Harb was generally receptive, but we have a long way to go with them. We're on the early stages of this.
But the driveway, the access is in the rear of those houses then?
That's right. We're trying to minimize the curb cuts to Bloomingdale. Now, I did hear Commissioner Fisher. That's exactly the type of thing that we would look at in land development. We certainly have good access for the front units along Bloomingdale, cognizant of what he's saying back here.
I'd also caution against the shared driveways. I have a lot. Again, I get so many complaints down in my ward about anyone who's sharing a driveway. It just creates a long-term feud. And, new construction or, I assume 2 and 3 are new construction? They're the new.
Everything would be new except
right.
1.
So here we get, again, it just creates contention. And eventually it either becomes a problem for a future commissioner. Maybe Don will still be commissioner at that point, but you can't, Don, you may already have shared driveways, but when there's inadequate parking and you have shared driveways, you have major headaches.
Well, we don't think there'll be inadequate parking. Shared driveways, I hear you on that. I would say that's the exception, that there are feuds. They are green, it's less paving, less curb cuts, so there's a lot of people, a lot of policies that would encourage the use of shared driveways. This will have a homeowners association that will set all the rules on it and govern it. So I think that will not be a problem since it will be governed in that way.
There wouldn't be any parking, I would imagine under development. There would be no parking allowed on the proposed drive. So I think I'm a little confused. I don't know how large the skirts are in front of the driveway, the garages, but just imagine two of these families having guests over. I only see 4 extra parking spaces that appear to be common area. It doesn't seem like an awful lot.
George, is there any overflow parking?
Yeah, the code requires 2 spaces per unit. I think the plan right now shows 21 or 22 spaces, so we have extra.
Well,
it is to
there are codes on parking for a reason.
It is stressed for parking, meaning that part of the town, right? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not a problem, but that part of the town, weekends, party time, that might be stressed for parking.
Sure.
Donnie, what are you going to do with the land? Condo it or lot it out?
I don't know if we've decided that right now.
Because that placement of the houses won't work if you lot it out, I don't think.
Yeah, I've been envisioning it as a land development plan that, it would be 1 lot. But we haven't gone into the details of that. We're still early on.
And 2 and 3 are where they are to match the setback in Newman?
Generally.
Because there's a lot of land in front of those buildings.
Yeah, there's a 50 feet setback line that we're meeting, and we also want to meet that and generally match the pattern
Right.
along Bloomingdale.
Where's the Newman Saunders building again?
It's number 1 on this plan.
Okay. And you said Mr. Gemmer lives in that house to the left?
I don't believe he lives there, but he owns that property on
But
the
that
corner.
was where the ophthalmologist's practice was?
No, it's in the middle one, right there.
Right there, okay.
I think
that-
Commissioner Curley said that's in the building that would be demolished. I thought there is some sort of office I was thinking about on this
That's a
corner.
psychologist's office there where you're
Right.
pointing out. So the, Dr. Bell, the ophthalmologist, that building is coming down.
If that's where Dr. Bell is, yes, that building would come down, non-contributing to the district.
Yeah. Back to Commissioner Fisher's points. You really are kind of cramming things here, I think, George, or your client is. And we saw that on 115 Stratford, and I know I had objections to that, and I lost on that. But you don't always have to build to the maximum envelope that your zoning code allows you to. And as John Fisher said, you have to try to put yourself in the position of people that are going to live there and people then that will buy from them. And what's it going to be like? How tight? It's going to be very, very tight, and parking is going to be haphazard. People will park in areas that they shouldn't. So I would ask you to talk to Mr. Erickson and his partner and consider coming back with something that's less dense, that's got more room, more room to breathe, more.
We can discuss that with them.
Yeah. And also, Commissioner Fisher mentioned the fire department or the fire company. Have you, well, for 115 Stratford, you got a letter from the fire company saying that they have done a field test and their vehicles could make it in there and make it and turn around. Have you done that yet here?
No, we haven't done that yet.
You'll be doing that, I assume?
We would go to them at the appropriate time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move us along. I want to give anyone in the audience who's here from the neighborhood a chance to speak if you'd like to give your initial impressions, recognizing that there has been nothing filed.
Hi, my name's Tim Holman. I live at 216 Lenore Avenue. And so my backyard is over here. And so what there wasn't a lot of discussion of is what's really here right now, mostly trees. It's actually beautiful, and it's really a beautiful streetscape when you walk here. And so, when you use an expression like non-contributory, I'm not sure what that means exactly. The part of what contributed to my decision to move to Wayne was the neighborhood feel of it. And so you've so far, through your prior decisions, you've got a multi dwelling here, and then you have, frankly, where the floor shop used to be on the corner of Conestoga and West Wayne. You have really, I suppose people are going to pay a lot of money for them, but really they're kind of an abomination in terms of they're utterly out of sync with the town, with the neighborhood, the cluster that exists there now, these huge out of scale, and that's what these would have to be, because if you're going to have this parking that the gentleman just talked about, well then there's going to have to be in the basement, and you're going to have, I'm guessing the proposal will ultimately be, that we don't have any plans yet, something on the order of 3 stories up here. And so you get some lovely landscaping back here. This is right next to beautiful, look at all the trees here, and that's what they actually carry right over here now. So you will utterly, and you can put small houses out on Bloomingdale Avenue fronting on it, but make no mistake about it, you will irreparably change the feel utterly and fundamentally of this neighborhood. Take a walk there at night and see how peaceful it is, how dark it is, frankly. It's lovely. And so the current building right here I don't know of a neighbor who has a concern with it. It's set back. It's not heavily commercially used to anything that I've ever seen, and perhaps somebody could fix up the property that's there, because I've been in there. I agree that this place could be sort of made nicer, but I don't know that the solution to turning this property into a contributing property is to destroy this and build 9 units. Like, that's not the town that I bought a house in. That's not the town. It's not why I moved to Wayne, so that we could just maximize every property. I mean, I have a half-acre property on Lenore. I mean, I suppose I could propose to knock down my house and put, 3 or 4 houses there. And so I don't know where it ends. If you can debate the sort of niceties of it, and they're trying to put a little cherry on the top. Oh, well, we'll leave this one beautiful home here. Totally against it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to give their opinion or thoughts?
Steve Elliott, West Avenue. I didn't attend tonight to speak on this, but I just had a quick question. I think zoning is probably always an ongoing discussion. Is there any active discussions about changing the zoning code for some of these residential neighborhoods?
Not for these neighborhoods, no.
Do you know how that conversation can get started?
Sometimes it happens. It happened in my ward where neighbors got together and they had some infill going on like this, and they didn't want any more infill. So they got together and came to the commissioners and said, we'd like to rezone our neighborhood, and then that went through. So
Okay.
that the few properties left that could have been subdivided and built upon, but those property owners were willing to give up those building rights. So
Yeah.
it's the best, easiest, smoothest way is for all neighbors to agree in an area.
Yeah.
And then come with a plan. Yes, we'd like to rezone.
And then the second question I had was around, it's my understanding, at least attending some of the planning commission hearings or board hearings, that landowners have the right to subdivide their land. That we hear it with the Villanova stuff, the biomed site, all that. What are the legal grounds for denying? Like, when it comes to you, and let's say this plan goes through all the planning stuff, it gets everything added, taken away, modified, and it comes to the Board of Commissioners, what gives you legal ground to say we don't approve this? Because I think that's probably a pretty loaded question, because there's legality concerns. A developer could sue you. It gets into this whole thing.
Well, there's a
But what do
200-page
you feel-
code,
Yeah.
and that's what governs.
What
And
was that?
There's a 200-page
Zoning
code,
code.
and that's what governs. And if they, and the developers are familiar with that, and they will try to submit a plan that abides by the code.
So technically, if it's within the zoning code and it gets to you, you don't have a legal basis to say no. Is that accurate?
Technically.
That's a by right
Yeah.
plan.
I think that's accurate, and this developer has indicated that this plan is by right. We don't know that it is by right.
Yeah,
yet,
this is all preliminary.
because we haven't reviewed it. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's what they've communicated is that they intend to submit a by right plan.
All right, I appreciate the clarification questions.
But the
Last
fir-
one, oh, good.
The first thing we do is look at the plan, and if it's not by right, we tell them no.
Yep.
So they only move forward after we look at it and say, okay, this does seem to follow all our rules.
Yeah. Do we know how many projects they're working in Wayne, this developer?
No, that's not,
Anyone keeping a soft count?
it's not a concern of ours.
I'm just curious if we know.
We know 115 Stratford,
Yep. 205,
205 Stratford,
Bloomingdale.
this one, Bloomingdale. I don't know what else.
Yeah. So
Sure, you could just ask George Brosman, and he would tell you
how
it's
many,
not.
how many projects you're currently working in Wayne with this
Well,
developer?
I don't mean
No, you
now.
don't.
Anyway,
No.
this is not really appropriate for
I
public
just want to
comment.
get it on public record.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you
thanks.
very much for coming up. Anybody else like to comment on this sketch? Okay, well, thank you for coming in and giving us a little preview of what you're thinking about. I hope some of the comments that you've heard have been helpful in moving forward.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Next, we have, we're still on Public Works. Jim.
I'm sorry. Yes. The next item is a report on Eagle Road and requested improvements to slow traffic down. And we have in our packet a rather comprehensive report by Gilmore and Associates, namely Amy Kaminsky, our traffic engineer, that analyzes the current traffic load, analyzes the, or refers to past studies by our police department on speeding. It covers the question of visibility and sight lines at intersections, and it makes some recommendations to our board about how we can try to control the speeding on Eagle Road, and it is a problem. So, Amy, would you like to talk about your report?
Sure. Information was gathered by the police department looking at the traffic volumes and the speeds on the road and running the information that we received. I don't know if you want me to go through the numbers, but it showed that there was a problem on this road, that vehicles were exceeding the speed limit, and it's a good candidate for traffic calming. We also looked at the stop control at the cross street at West Avenue. Right now, West Avenue is stop controlled while Eagle is free flow, or Stafford, no, it's Eagle Road is free flow. We did a site distance analysis based on the speeds that vehicles were traveling, and there is a problem looking to the left as you're heading north on West Avenue. So we recommended two things. One would be to install 2 speed humps and do a post-analysis to determine whether or not the sight distances are still an issue, because if we reduce the speeds on Eagle, then we may not have a sight distance issue any longer. However, the other thing that we recommended was to install 1 speed hump and put a stop sign in at West Avenue, which would turn that into an always stop controlled intersection. Our recommendation would be to put the always stop control at West Avenue and construct 1 speed hump between Stafford Avenue and West Avenue. Now, I know that there are some speed humps in the area. The ones that we typically recommend are 3 to 4 inches height in profile. So we would provide those details to Public Works if they were going to construct it.
Amy, I noticed at the very end of your memorandum, you seem to have a third alternative recommended.
Which there's always that alternative, do nothing.
You say that if the township decides to forego any traffic calming elements, which I assume means speed humps or chicanes or widening the road but then narrowing it, the township should alleviate the sight distance deficiency and revise the traffic control at the intersection of Eagle Road and West Avenue to always stop control. What are you saying there?
If you elect not to do any traffic calming measures on the roadway, you would need to at least resolve the sight distance issue on West Avenue looking left. And the only way to do that is to put in an always stop control at that intersection. So that would be the most minimal thing that you could do for the intersection.
Okay.
But we believe that by having those 2 intersections with the 2 always stop controls nearby each other, because there's an always stop control over at Stratford and Eagle, that what happens is if you have 2 closely spaced always stop controls, motorists speed up between the stop to try and make up for time between those intersections, and we think it would be beneficial to have some kind of a traffic calming element there to keep that from occurring.
So just to summarize, it seems like there are 3 basic offerings here. You could have 2 speed humps and a stop sign.
No, 2 speed humps. We were recommending if you put in the 2 speed humps, then you would need to come in and do a post-analysis to determine whether or not the speeds were reduced on that approach. And if they were reduced sufficiently, you may not need to put the always stop control in.
So that's one, just 2 speed humps. If the post-construction analysis shows that speed is not reduced adequately, then you would have a second possibility, and that is two speed humps and the stop sign.
Correct.
Four-way stop sign. And then we could back up and we could say we could have one speed hump, and that's all. Or we could have one speed hump and a stop sign.
We don't have the option of just one speed hump, right?
Why is that?
Well, you could put one speed hump in and then do a post-construction analysis to determine whether or not your speeds were reduced sufficiently, but given the distance between the two intersections, we think that it would be better to install two speed humps. We usually try to space them 200 to 300 feet apart.
All right. Well, I'll reserve any comments until the other commissioners want to say something.
So I'll give you my feedback then. I think one thing we try to do sometimes is we try to massage these things and make them like it's a Swiss watch. And I guess I've come to the conclusion that if we're going to do something, the speed humps are the most effective, and I'm usually willing to, like, if we decide this is a circumstance where we need the intervention, then I'm generally willing to accept the sort of relative inelegance of the speed hump.
Mm-hmm.
So my opinion would be that if we decide this is worthy of speed controls, that we use the two speed humps and the all-way control at the intersection, the all-way stop at the intersection, the relatively intensive version, rather than try to sort of nuance it. And I guess part of that is people are going to hate the speed hump, and they're no matter what. And the second speed hump isn't going to change that too much. And if it has the intended effect, then to me, it's like the marginal impact of the first speed hump is significant, but the marginal impact of the second speed hump is much less significant. So the marginal negative impact. So to me, if we decide this is one that requires intervention, then I'm agreeable to the two speed hump variant.
Well said.
Well, my opinion on this is, all right, so we try to do everything we can to avoid putting the speed humps in, and we have a very high threshold for getting them. And this neighborhood has qualified for that, and they've passed that threshold. But the reason that we really try to avoid putting them in everywhere is, well, it's a lot of reasons. They're difficult on our snow removal. They're difficult on our emergency vehicles. It slows down emergency response times on a major road. It's loud. The neighbors who wanted the speed bump ended up hating the speed bump because they hear all the cars stop and go, stop and go. It increases emissions. So there are a lot of negatives to a speed bump, even though they actually really work in slowing down traffic. So I see an option in here where we might be able to slow down the traffic without the speed humps by putting in the stop signs. Not that that would be the sole purpose of the stop signs, but so I would be tempted to try that first and see if that sort of unobtrusive and more elegant way of controlling the traffic works. Then take our measurements, and if it's not slowing down enough, or if it's not slowing down, then go ahead and put in some temporary bumps and see, or a bump at that point, since the stop signs would already be in, and see if that does the trick. But it's my inclination to start with less rather than more and see if it works, especially if we can avoid putting the bumps in. But certainly, I think the question is answered that we do need speed control there. And it would just be my preference to start with just the stop signs, let that happen, get the measurements, and see if it works.
If I understand it, Amy, the stop signs basically are to, as it says, alleviate the sight distance deficiency at Eagle Road and West Avenue, correct? So that's there she is.
Yes.
That's different than the, I mean, it's not, it may in effect have traffic calming, but that's not its purpose.
That's right. But it is meant to be a way of providing that sight distance, because you're making all the vehicles stop at the intersection, so there's no longer a need to look to the left and gain view of vehicles coming on that approach.
Isn't there a slight offset there on West on Eagle Road, the intersections are not directly across from each other. Does that affect the?
No, I looked at it. I don't believe that's going to be an issue there. They're not offset enough that it would become a problem. And once we place the always stop control underneath it, it becomes apparent what's occurring.
Is there anyone else that'd like to comment on the board? We don't have this on the agenda for a vote, but before we discuss where we'd like to take this next, I'd like to see if there's anyone in the audience from the neighborhood that would like to speak to this.
Hi, my name is Joe Falcone, 354 Eagle Road. We live 2 houses away from the intersection, right at West and Eagle, and we've seen plenty of speeding going on Eagle Road over the years, and witnessed several accidents right at that corner. In addition, and I feel that the idea that Commissioner Schaefer put forward of maybe trying the minimalist approach of getting the stop signs in would go a long way to reducing the speed and also solve the vision issue from the traffic that's coming from West Avenue. The humps I would agree that the humps would be intrusive for the neighborhood, the people that live in our immediate area. And it may be the case that they may be needed if the stop signs don't do it, but having stop signs on either direction, I feel would really go a long way to help solving both the vision and the speeding issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Jeffrey Gahn. I live at 348 Eagle Road, which are basically the neighbors to the Falcones. And actually, I agree with you exactly. I don't feel, however, that the stop sign will be the total solving of this problem. I believe that's a great first step. There's so many trucks, basically with the speed bumps. The truck traffic, excuse me, on that road can be almost like Lancaster Pike. You have tractor trailers that serve the colleges, the Valley Forge Military Academy, then going the other way for Eagle Village. And I can't even imagine them hitting these 2 speed bumps. They come at 12 o'clock at night even. You have buses, car carriers, all sorts of different things. So I think a stop sign would be the appropriate thing to start with. And then perhaps a temporary speed bump could be placed. Also on that road, whether you're aware of it or not, there's the very bad flooding problems. Whereas all the water from the office building literally pours onto Eagle Road. So Eagle Road will turn into a river, and I can't imagine when you put these speed bumps in, they'll redirect the water into a much narrower. And that road also is scheduled, I believe, for this year to be resurfaced because all the water damage hits the shoulder, and the shoulders are taken out by the trucks. So we have potholes there now that are at least 50 yards long. I mean, and you keep filling them, and they keep happening. And all our houses on that side of the road actually shake every time a truck hits that. And you can actually sit there, and I work at home. You could have 10, I'm talking tractor trailers, I'm not talking, because I'll call the enforcement. And I realize they're very busy, but basically you just get lip service. Call me when you see a truck. And so it gets to be a joke. But I think, not to extend this too much more, yeah, I think the stop sign is certainly the way you want to go. And then if we can put in a temporary speed, and also I don't know where you're going to position this hump either, because I'm basically in the middle of the 2, and there's 2 driveways that are right next to each other. There's also telephone poles that are right up against the road. they restrict the narrowness of the road. So, I mean, there's a lot of a lot of site problem. It's not, if it was a nice little road that just cars went down, they went fast, the speed bumps would be great. But with all the truck traffic and the noise and everything else, I think that to start off with what you were thinking would be the wise choice.
Bill?
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Nicole Moore. I live at 315 Eagle Road. I was here last month when we were discussing Eagle Road. I just wanted to reiterate one point about the truck traffic on Eagle Road. Eagle Road is technically a no truck traffic road. So I think the research that was done was really excellent, so thank you. I think I have a view of the stop sign is it will definitely help with the sight distance. The concern is also around the speeding aspect, which I have a little pause around people that, as Amy indicated, speeding back up once they go through the stop sign. I think it's a great measure, but I think that coupled with the traffic calming measure of a speed hump, using that term loosely, would really, I think, solidify the traffic calming because you do have that truck traffic. My house shakes when trucks go by. When they go by, they're not going 25 miles per hour, unfortunately. They are going super fast, and they are huge trucks. So it's an exchange of, I think, what today exists as a loud noise and a loud vibration from speed, exchanging that for the sound, knowing that they're going the speed limit or they're close to it. So I think what I'm trying to articulate here is that the two pieces together is really what's going to help create a safe environment for the neighbors of Eagle Road and West Avenue. So thank you very much for your time with this. Appreciate it.
Okay, is there anyone else?
Steve Elliott, West Avenue. I want to first say thank you to Mrs. Moore for the effort she put into putting this in front of you. She did a lot of work, and it was really great for the neighborhood. I'm absolutely in support of a calming effort. I think the stop signs at Eagle, at West Avenue is absolutely critical. I think a speed hump somewhere, I'm not a traffic engineer, is probably also necessary. You know, if I had to guess, the observation for living on that street for a long, long time is that cars absolutely fly over the Eagle Road Bridge and they come down zooming. And I think calming that traffic would go an absolutely long way. So I absolutely support this, you know, with the development going on that we've discussed, 205, the new townhouses on Stratford. Traffic's only going to get worse. They're all going to come through this area, through that intersection to get to Wayne. They're not going to go down Lancaster and make that left on Stratford onto Lancaster. They're going to come down West or Eagle and make a right on West Avenue. So we absolutely need help there, especially with everything going on. So thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to comment? All right, so Commissioner Higgins, this is in your ward.
Yes, I'd like to point out that sidewalks. I know Mrs. Brown, has been an advocate of sidewalks on Eagle Road, justifiably so. And I cannot predict what's going to happen with 205 Stratford Avenue development, but I'm hoping that the developer will come around and put sidewalks in on Eagle Road. That will help pedestrians and people like Lynn, who walks the dog every day. I have really thought long and hard about this, and I want to do what's right for the neighbors. I really thank Nicole Moore because she mustered out so many people to come to us and ask for relief from these problems. I would like to ask our board to take this a step at a time and let us start out with a stop sign at West and Eagle. If the goal here is to slow traffic down, I think that will do it. Maybe not totally, but it will be a big start. And where Mrs. Moore lives, We cannot put a speed hump because of the lack of distance between it and the Eagle Road Bridge. The speed humps would go further to the west by the four-way blinker light. In addition to Mr. Kahn, who spoke, and Mr. Falcone, who spoke about stop sign being a first step, I did speak, or I did communicate with another neighbor on the same side of the street as their houses, and she is really opposed to speed humps. She doesn't want them because she's worried about noise and air brakes from the big vehicles going off, and the sound from deceleration and acceleration. So that's where my unscientific polling came out. I did try other people. I did not hear from them. So all in all, I think what I'd like to recommend to my fellow commissioners is that we try the stop sign. That will slow things down. It will improve site visibility for people going north on West Avenue at the Eagle Road intersection. And let's see if that works. If it doesn't work, then we've got these other options. So.
And it's a perfectly reasonable approach, so I sense we make that decision tonight and proceed, correct? That's the way you see it?
That's what I would ask,
okay.
Yes.
So
do we need to take can we take a motion even though it's not on the agenda?
Or just it's going to probably be the consent or the unanimous consent of the board that we proceed as Jim indicated.
Talking about a stop sign, you're going to need to do an ordinance, add that to your traffic code.
Right. So staff will begin initiating that process.
You can authorize that tonight.
With a motion?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to make that motion, Jim?
Yes, I will move that we direct our staff to prepare an ordinance for introduction and then passage to set up a stop sign for east-west traffic on Eagle Road to complement the two-way stop sign that already exists on north-south on West Avenue.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes 7-0. Okay, that wraps up. Oh, no, it doesn't. We have another issue in Public Works and Engineering. Jim, would you like to introduce it?
Yes. We have a very small item called Ardrossan Farm on the agenda next. I know there are lots of people here for that. The applicant is a limited liability company, and I don't have the exact name on the tip of my tongue, but Edgar Scott III is here. It's ES3 LP of Wilmington, Delaware. And Mr. Scott is here with his counsel, Mr. Snyder. And I assume you've got an engineer also at this point. Okay.
Lisa Thomas. Whoops. Yes, thank you. David Fiorella, the engineer, is here, and Lisa Thomas, the landscape architect, is here.
And this is proposed resolution 2014-73, preliminary plan approval for Ardrossan Farm.
That's correct. We have reviewed that, and we have no objection to any portions of it.
No objections to what our
any
township...
portions of the proposed resolution.
Okay, including all the reports and drawings and plans that our township engineer has commented on or produced.
At least as it was submitted to us, yes. It had the letter of your township engineer and your traffic engineer, and it had the decision of the hearing examiner in the conditional use.
Okay.
Those were the three things that were attached.
All right.
Okay, just to clarify where we are in this process for those of you who are watching at home and those of you here, this is the preliminary plan that we would be approving tonight. At our last meeting, there was a caucus at which we discussed the plan. Before it came to us in caucus, it had gone to the Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission several occasions. And the resolution that is in front of us tonight incorporates the items that we talked about during caucus, many of them, that percolated their way up from the Planning Commission and the County Planning Commission. So tonight what we will be doing is discussing whether to approve the preliminary plan. If that is approved, then there's yet another step. There's a final plan approval in 2 or 4 weeks, at which then the applicant would be allowed to proceed if they get final plan approval. So that's just a briefing on the process. I think I got that right. So there are a few issues. I'm sure we've all spent some time with this resolution, and there are a few issues that I would like to just clarify with the applicant. The first one being number 9. And this is the condition that the plans or plot plans for the 4 units on the top of the rye field would be submitted to the Planning Commission in their October meeting, and that the commissioners would ultimately approve them.
That's correct. The 4 lots, the building envelopes in those lots would be set in that final plan, would go through the Planning Commission meeting on the 6th of October and then back to the board.
So I would like to just ensure that when that happens, that those plans will be accompanied with elevations from the street, so that either done by your engineer or done by our engineer, so that it's hard to look at a flat plan and understand what visibility you're going to see.
Sure.
So some were done before. At some point in this process, we had seen some elevations, but they weren't with, where we've ended up now, and they didn't include whatever plot plan you're going to put together. So what I'm trying to ensure is that when the Planning Commission sees these proposed lots, that they have something to look at that will give them a real idea of what they're approving, given the condition that's in the conditional use decision.
I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other comment is something that came up last week. We had as you know, as many people know, we have hired a planner to be our consultant on many items, important items, this one being one, for many reasons, but our director of community development is out for many months, so we have a planner helping us. And last week, his firm, Retu, submitted their comments on this proposal. And they were generally supportive and underscored our understanding that these plans comport with our comprehensive planning. But there was an item that came up that has not come up before, which I'm hoping is not a big deal. But I read it many times over, thought about it for a few days, and I thought, that is really good advice, and I'd like to discuss it tonight. And that is the Retu looked at this plan, also looking at our greenways and open space plan that is about to be finalized. And that plan recommends heavily that we try to connect our whole Skunk Hollow and Willow Park and the trails that we'll be putting on the open space we purchased at Ardrossan with the northern side of our township, which we've already started to do. When the Atterbury property was developed, we asked them to put in a footpath in the front of their property, and they did so. It's already in. And their suggestion was that we have this property owner do the same and have a footpath continued on Newtown Road. Now, the topography is a little difficult at some points, but certainly not impossible. So I'd like to discuss and explore whether that's amenable.
That has been discussed at least 3 other times in the timing of this project, back from the conditional use hearings through the Planning Commission, and at least 3 times. Commissioner Higgins brought something up tonight that I think is very important to understand with respect to Ardrossan. And that is, he said, developers don't always have to come in and try and maximize the development of a property. And this is being developed at 40% of the development capability. And part of the reason that it's being done that way is that we can sustain the value of the property. We're not the owners, we're the buyers. So we're paying dearly for what the owners are are selling this property that could be developed for 150 homes. We're having to deal with that type of purchase price. And the way in which we do it is we create some exclusivity. We create some real value in being in Ardrossan. And we've said from the start that we can't sustain that with trails through Ardrossan. So if we're not talking trails through Ardrossan, we can talk. If we're talking trails through the property,
this is
we're not.
Newtown Road, on Newtown Road, outside of the stone wall.
Okay, and you don't need us for that because that's all right-of-way. That's all PennDOT. Whether PennDOT's going to allow something to go in there is the real issue. But if you want a trail outside the wall, I don't.
Right. I don't think it's an issue of permission. It's more construction. And in lieu, given that you're not putting any sidewalks in anywhere except for the Road A or whatever, that one road, that this would be in lieu of having to do that.
Well, my issue with that is, first of all, it's got to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And the issue along there is, and there's not a lot of distance between that existing wall and the road right-of-way. So putting a safe trail in there is something that people in control, whether it's the township and PennDOT or PennDOT being totally in control, are going to have to sign off on there being such a thing there. And the answer can't be, well, it's not safe there, move it inside, because we can't do 40% development of its site and have trails inside that wall. That's just a non-starter. So if it can be done outside the wall, we can support that happening, but we can't do it with it being inside the wall.
Okay.
Would it be advisable then, part of the logic of this, as I see it, is that sidewalks and road widths provide some kind of recreational activity, particularly pedestrian walking, and you've indicated that you want to not have sidewalks and to have a reduced cartway for the reasons that you identified, and I think there was support for the board. But that comes at considerable savings to the developer. So would it be prudent then, is it prudent for us, can we get a contribution in lieu then toward trails should we decide to put a trail in? We
are giving you a contribution. Part of our responsibility is a contribution for park and recreation.
There's park and rec fees per unit, but I think what Commissioner Schaefer is talking about is because they can construct something a lot more cost effectively than the township can, is to not only agree to do that sidewalk along Newtown Road and bring it into the Ryfield sidewalk, I think is what Mr. Gabriel's comment is, but when they're out there building, construct that, assuming PennDOT will approve that sidewalk along Newtown Road.
Right. I just want to make sure we don't call it a sidewalk because it's really not a sidewalk. It's a footpath. Okay. And it really does not, in some locations, it will not arise to what you would think of as a sidewalk because it's very thin. But, and if you go down Newtown Road right now, you can see an example of what this would look like at the Atterbury property.
Okay. So what would help me, though, in this discussion is to understand what the waivers amount to economically for the developer. So, I'm just
frankly, the reason why I want to stop you is...
No, excuse me, I'm going to ask the questions.
Sure,
you can't stop me from asking questions.
Go ahead.
I think it goes the other way. Fine. So I think what I'm looking for is how long are the roads that are being constructed? How long are the roads? Do we have I'll lean to staff on this. Do we have the linear footage for the roads that are proposed on this plan? How many feet? Is it 5,000 feet, 7,000 feet? And this is the road length on the roads that they're requesting waivers on. And you know what, if it's plus or minus 10%,
We don't
fine.
have that number readily available. We could take some time here and prepare that, if you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, are we talking a half mile, a mile?
I wouldn't want to venture to guess at this point. I'd have to look at the plan.
Okay, so I'm going to estimate it
Yeah.
between a half mile and a mile. It's got to wrap around. You've got a couple roads in this development. And I just went on some pricing guides for road construction in the U.S., and these are averages. You're looking at the average, and this is not Radnor, this is the average, so we're much more expensive here. In fact, the block of concrete in Radnor for sidewalk is about double the national average cost to have it done here. So these are averages. We're looking at, just to grade a roadway, it's about $15 a foot. Paving is about $30 a foot. Granite curbs, $50 a foot. Stormwater, $50 a foot. Sidewalks, $100 a foot. $100 a foot. So, you know, if we assume a half a mile to a mile, this is anywhere from, I'd say, $500,000 to $1.5 million of savings in construction costs. That's an estimate. But this is a huge economic benefit to the developer, that we're waiving these requirements. And these are requirements that I had a resident in my neighborhood say, why are you allowing people to build cartways less than 24 feet? Why are you allowing people to build cartways less than the 28 feet required? Okay? I have residents that are complaining about safety when they're walking because there are no curbs. So what worries me about the development is this development will have a number of families living there that will not have the same safety and recreational access that everyone else has in the town. So the other thing I want to point out is that we have cases where the roadways are, where the roads don't have sidewalks, and Elaine Schaefer's, a lot of our wards and areas have this. But what we have is 28-foot cartways, and we have curbs, and we have stormwater. And you know, again, we're looking at, I mean, I have the numbers here. I'm up over almost approaching $2 million if it's a mile. $2 million. Now, maybe engineering can give me that distance.
Well, John, the issue is, you know, we're not looking for a sidewalk, we're not looking for curb, we're looking for a path along Newtown Road.
Well, and I'm trying to lay out.
John, I'm talking to
okay,
John.
I'm trying to lay out the economic.
No, I understand. We understand that, John. So, you know, what is the possibility of us along that stone wall being able to get a path no matter how small?
I think we've already gotten yes.
Yeah.
I think you've heard us say, as long as PennDOT will allow it, as long as the people who are approving it are determining that it's safe, as long as it's outside the wall, we'll work with you on that. That's not the issue. My issue with Mr. Fisher's side is that this plan has been designed with all of those savings in it so that we can stay at 40% of development instead of going to 50 or 60% of development in this project, or even more because of the difference in the pricing of what you have. That's the factor that I don't think you understand, is that those types of savings are what allow us to do what Mr. Higgins is saying, not develop at the maximum or even close to that.
I fully understand it, and we both fully understand what's going on here. Okay, there's no question that we both understand. What I have to do as an elected official is make sure that we do what's best for the health and safety and welfare of the public. Okay, your job isn't that.
So
My job is
okay,
that.
so let's.
John, what you're saying is, if you get approval to put a path along the wall, Newtown Road, you know, and you can reasonably do that, and you get all the approvals you need, you're willing to construct.
And if
Okay,
we can, if we can take that as an item that is going to be addressed as a standalone item, so that
Well,
the
I would
rest of
prefer
the
to have that
plans
as part
don't.
of the resolution. So I would add to number 3, which is where we grant all the waivers. At the end of that, however, subject to PennDOT and Township approval, applicant will construct a footpath on Newtown Road outside of the stone wall, the length of the property.
The length of the property to the township property.
Yes. Mhm.
I understand what you're saying.
So that would be language we would add into condition number 3 of the resolution.
And just so that I'm clear in what I'm saying, we have worked closely to try and get this plan moved and meetings and everything else, and we've submitted our final plans and everything else. We don't know what it's going to take to get PennDOT to be able to look at and approve or disapprove a walk along there. So,
well, if we get through this whole thing and you're done and PennDOT shuts it down, well, then that clause no longer applies.
well, no, I think what's correct is that plan, I mean, we can certainly escrow for a walk if it's approved. But
Okay.
to have to get the plan, the final plan, to include the design and everything of the walk, which could take a while.
Fine.
That's what I'm trying to avoid.
No, we didn't, in Atterbury, we didn't have a final drawing either.
It's just a condition that'll be
Right.
covered, along with all the other improvements. It'll have to be built as part of the final plan.
Even when it gets approved.
Right.
Correct.
Are we going to set a dollar amount on this, John? I mean, shouldn't we need, I mean, this seems awfully, you know, what if PennDOT requires curbing along that stretch to make the path safe? And is the applicant willing to pay for that?
Well, there will be one spot where you will need physical barrier between the very narrow walking path and Newtown Road. I don't know what that physical barrier will be.
And the
Could be
answer is
bollards.
no, we are not interested in curbing Newtown Road.
Right,
'Cause
I don't
once you
think it's
curb
curbing.
Newtown
It
Road,
could
you
be
also deal with all
bollards, it
storm
could
water
be-
and everything else.
They're going to have to do whatever, and the township's going to have to work with the developer and PennDOT to get the pathway approved. And whatever PennDOT approves, that's what's going to have to be built. as
What we're
part of
seeking tonight is the commitment to do it, to
do
construct it,
Right,
and having that part of our resolution.
right.
Elaine or someone, can you specify exactly where that path would go? Is that from Atterbury past Abrams Lane all the way to, exactly where do you expect that to go? Can you outline that?
Well, it would go from the water, you know, where the property ends. I guess that's at the private lane. Yeah, and all the way down on the south side, or I guess that's the east side,
South side.
south side, to connect with where the township trail begins at the top of the rye field.
Which would be inside the buffer
Right,
strip.
so the connector, I'm not sure what that connector would look like. I think there's an incline, so there might have to be steps up. Because the ADA
So
ramp.
that trail is right by the curved road, or the small access road there around the, I mean, where exactly is that? Is that to the new, the new buffer?
It's on the shoulder of Newtown Road. That would be the shoulder of Newtown Road.
Shoulder of Newtown Road? No, but, so it doesn't go Newtown Road all the way out to Darby Paoli Road,
No,
right?
no, it would
ends at the-
join in to our trail, which is sort of interior on the rye field.
That's near the buffer that's
Yes,
anticipated?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And this is a pedestrian trail. I mean, the trail that we will be building up on that property is going to be a mowed, it's not even going to be surface, it's going to be mowed grass.
And
So,
I need some clarity. As I recall, we had explored artificial surfaces in the past. Is this trail an artificial surface? Is it concrete? Is it asphalt? Is it gravel? What is it?
well, I think we're going to have to work with PennDOT and with, and to figure out what's the safest, what's the most, you know, we'll have to get some expert opinion on that.
Yeah, well, I forget what
Atterbury
we-
has a, like a crushed stone, but a small crushed stone. But
It's like
that
a
might not be
vernacular
appropriate here, I
type.
don't know.
I think it's-
Has anyone done a feasibility analysis of any kind to know that this is technically feasible?
No, I don't believe, you mean like a trail expert?
More an engineering expert to know whether we would have trouble with trees, things of that sort. I mean, I don't know on,
There are
I
no
guess what I'm
trees,
concerned
there
about
are no
is.
trees between the wall and the road.
So the sense is it's a clear shot and you can put some kind of surface
It's a clear shot, but it's
material on.
very tight at some points, very tight. So, I mean, it could be a single file path at some points. Anyway, so I think we've got an agreement that we could add that language to number 3. Is there anything else that any of the other commissioners would like to address
Is that
about this
language
resolution?
footpath?
Footpath.
Before we vote, I would like a summary of that language again. It was sort of disjointed.
Well, the addition to number 3 would be in consideration of the waivers which were spelled out in the Gannett-Fleming letter. The applicant will construct a footpath along Newtown Road in the right-of-way outside of the wall for the length of the property to the rye field. Subject to, it's going to be subject to PennDOT and township approval.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions about the resolution in front of us?
You ought, John, you ought to specify to connect with the existing Radnor Trail instead of just to the rye field, I would say.
Well, there is no trail there,
could say
but the
planned,
proposed, I think the
right.
proposed
Right.
To the proposed
mode trail.
trail.
Right.
I mean, I guess that's a question. Are you going to mow it then over to the road, or are you going to bring gravel into where you mow? I don't understand.
We haven't had our consultant come up with the proposed plan yet.
I mean, I would think the
There'll be some sort of
connection-
connector.
would think the connection in your property should be yours.
Madam President, if I may, I would
Yes.
say that it would be a paved path. I don't think we want stone and gravel and washouts. It should be paved, similar to what Atterbury's done, which I think is nice. So I would believe you'd
Well,
want to have an asphalt.
Atterbury's not paved. What is
There
Atterbury?
is- To me, along the road.
It's red stone, yeah.
It should be paved.
It's
I
a
would
stone
recommend
path.
it be paved.
And we would object to paving. I'm not,
There's not, I don't know how familiar you are with the property. There's really not room for a paved path. Well, our crest stone is considered impervious in Radnor,
but I understand,
unfortunately.
but it actually does allow water to go through. That's what we're concerned with.
All right, is there any other discussion? Okay, I'm going
Well,
to.
I would just, one last point. I think that the points made by Commissioner Fisher and others, and Elaine and others, there is a concession here. I see it as a concession. The developer is not being required to comply with what would ordinarily be the standard width of roads. It is going to cost less. It's a concession. It's not part of the exclusivity, and you do have a density modification to allow you to build the density you would otherwise. And I recognize the purpose of it, which is to, as Elaine said in the past, to maintain as rural a feel as possible, and to minimize the density, to maintain as much open space as possible, which is obviously the goal. Commissioner Higgins also made reference to that with the other earlier development plan. And I think those are worthy goals, and I would really urge you to remember that, and we should extend that to the second ward with the sites that we have under consideration, that while we maintain as much rural activity and a rural feel as possible, that we'd maintain that for the second ward and the 145 King of Prussia Road site and others. So,
Okay, is there any other comment? All right, I'm going to go ahead and invite any members of the public who would like to comment. Come on up.
I'm Barbara Duber. I live at 776 Newtown Road, across from the water tower. My husband Bill and I have lived there for 44 years. I'm in Radnor residence for more than 55 years. And I am appalled at the lack of consideration for a township residents in that the Planning Commission wanted to pass this, the waivers, if the road was not put directly, a road was not put directly across from our house. And the Planning Commission approved, or preliminarily approved, with the waivers, with that consideration. And when it came to the Board of Commissioners removed that and said that that road would be going in directly across from my driveway. It's just like a straight shot across. It diminishes the value of our house tremendously. It causes the lights from the traffic to come into our house. And I think I'm surprised at the lack of consideration for residents in Radnor Township.
We were led to believe, and I saw pictures to that end, that the road is not directly across from the opening of your house, that it is directly across from a road. Is that not correct? I mean, excuse me, a wall. Is that not correct?
I was told it was directly across from our driveway.
Well, I believe the pictures that we saw and that we made our decision based upon, the road enters Newtown Road and looks straight out to a wall, not to a driveway. So with that information, we made the decision that with increased buffering, should the landowner request it, they would, and it's a condition of this resolution that if the landowner, wants more planting, because even if there is a wall, there will be reflected light. And so to take care of that reflected light, we, and the applicant was more than happy to say, yes, we would provide that increased buffer.
My next door neighbor just brought.
Can we get an overhead view of this? Just when you talk about that, this is the move. You have to move.
If you move it to the center of the table, it's yeah.
Can you pan down and focus?
Yes.
Come on down.
I think we can see it.
Make it bigger.
Make it bigger?
A little bigger? Okay. Can I assist?
Yes, go ahead.
Please.
Okay. I will. This is the water tower. There's your fire hydrant. The roadway will be right here, next to the fire hydrant. This photograph was taken with the fire hydrant right here. Okay, so that entrance will come to her driveway and that wall right in this area, and her house is directly behind that. So it's not as though it will encompass, because I'm standing in her driveway taking this picture right here. So that driveway here will more or less encompass from here to here. Her house sits directly from here to there.
Wait, can you, the driveway you said that will come out will be, you just said?
Directly into this area right here.
Right, which is a walled.
And her house is directly behind it.
Right, and that I acknowledge that there will be reflected light when cars come out.
It'd be more than just a reflective light. There's light up, there's light down, okay? And then there's also the fact that there's traffic from 19 houses coming in and out of that intersection to her house, day in, day out, 365 days a year.
It's difficult enough now to get out of the driveway as it is without facing oncoming traffic.
Well, we did discuss this, I'm sure you saw, and we did put in the resolution the obligation to work with you and offer to try to diffuse that reflected light by plantings. I hope that you can work with the applicant and take advantage of that. I do think it will help the situation.
I guess I just don't see the necessity for the road being right there as it is. So,
thank you. Would anybody else like to come up?
Good evening. My name is Tim Boylan. I reside at 278 Hothorpe Lane. I'm the next door neighbor to Barbara and Bill Duber, who front on Newtown Road. I have a letter here that I tried to get to you before the meeting, but I'm going to, it's addressed to Ms. Schaefer, and I have copies for the Board of Commissioners, so if I could hand that out to you right now. What's that? I'll get you one. I'd like to read this out loud and put it on the record, and I would then comment later with some pictures and some backup for the information that was attached to this resolution from the other professionals that gave testimony. I'm writing to you as a resident of Radnor Township and as a member of the Radnor Taxpayers Association. The RTA is a Radnor community group with 180 active members with common concerns about the Ardrossan farm development. We've actively followed and commented in public meetings on the application before the commissioners. We've also been granted standing in the conditional use density modification hearings in this matter as well. I'd like to request the opportunity to collectively speak for the 180 members of the Radnor Township Taxpayers Association in this public comment portion of the Board of Commissioners meeting. My comments may need an extended time frame to get through. I trust you will indulge us with this time since I'm speaking collectively for a large group of township taxpayers. The RTA, and I'll refer to us as the RTA because I get into a bunch of different names here, but I'll refer to the Radnor Taxpayers Association as the RTA. We believe that there are numerous issues that need to still be addressed with this application, and we've itemized some of our concerns in the attached list, which I'll go through some of that with you this evening. The RTA members have been requesting that the township engage a professional planning consultant since the start of this process. We appreciate the resources RE2 now brings to the process. The RTA feels that the consultant has not had enough time to fully get on board and up to speed with this application because of the process time that we're at right now. Their letter to Mr. Norsini of September 2nd speaks to this issue itself. Inaccurate facts and inconsistencies in statements are used to reach unsupported conclusions. We ask that voting on the resolution 2014-73 be deferred until the consultant can research and report their independent findings on all pertinent issues within their analysis scope on the application before you. This will only enhance the transparency of the SALDO process and give the Board of Commissioners the full benefit of RE2's engagement. I know it's a difficult position to be in, being a consultant coming into the middle of a process, but for them not to have the opportunity to be fully briefed and fully understand not only what the applicant is putting forward, but what the neighbors have to say and think, and they have not been a part of that process. We would hope that they get the chance to spend the needed time that the township is going to be spending for them and get their bang for the buck. So we thank you for your attention to our concerns. So can I have the table,
Yes.
please?
Yes.
Okay. And I've copied all of you gentlemen and all of the president and you gentlemen, along with the board of the Radnor Taxpayers Association and our House of Representative William Adolph Jr. Okay, so let me start. We'll get to those later. With regard to the resolution 2014-73, it said that the preliminary plan was reviewed by the Township Planning Commission. We know that, we were there. And the Delaware Planning Commission has reviewed this. I don't know where, I've been out to their website. I have no idea where to find the Delaware County Planning Commission's review on the Ardrossan farm. There's no mention of it anywhere, and there's nothing in the notes and the backup to this application and the resolution that we're here. I would hope that you would give me the latitude to run through this. There's a lot of questions, and I'm not looking for answers right back. If we want to after we're done, or even later, hopefully if this thing is deferred, we can then go through those and you can answer our questions, okay? Because a lot of those have not been answered through the other venues that we've had. The RTA wants to know why the Board of Commissioners did not agree with the contingency recommendations to the preliminary plan of application with regard to the relocation of Road B direct access to Newtown Road at the Dubers property. Not just, we're going to put in some shrubberies, thank you very much, Mrs. Duber, go sit down, and let's move forward. I think that a planner, a true planner, can add some real benefit, some access, and some transparency to how a development fits in a property and a neighborhood like we have in Ward 3, and work with the neighbors and the stakeholders in that area. The waiver recommendations were based on contingencies to delete Road B access to Newtown Road and changes to the lot configurations adjacent to the Ryfield property. It's another problem we have. The Ryfield property and its view shed and how it's being viewed is being looked at completely different by the Board of Commissioners, as the view sheds and the locale and the buffers and everything else along Newtown Road to the new homes that are going to be put across the street from us. In the resolution document package, RE2 sent a letter to Mr. Norsini on September 2nd. It was called Forest Mitigation Plan, but it really talked about more issues than that. The RTA members who are adjacent neighbors directly affected by the development do not agree that adequate additional screening of proposed construction is incorporated into the applicant's design drawings. No new additional buffers have been incorporated in the design drawings as directed by the Planning Commission, at least that we have not seen to date. The RTA wants to know what the Board of Commissioners' rationale is to not providing adequate screening and buffering to protect the neighboring stakeholders, and why the BOC is justifying a difference in demands for buffering 100 feet of the view shed for traffic on Darby Paoli and Newtown Road than they are for the neighbors along Newtown Road. It just seems as though we have two different perspectives going on here. One is for a view shed for the Ryfield, and the other view sheds for all of the residents along Newtown Road tend to be a second-class citizen when it comes to what's expected with regard to buffering. The RE2 letter misrepresents the roadway designations when discussing the transportation and circulation plan. Either they are not working with the current plans and documentation to the application, or their due diligence may be in error. Caution should be taken by the Board of Commissioners so as not to base their directions on faulty RE2 conclusions due to inaccurate information or lack of time to research and review the application package fully. The RTA respectfully requests that the Board of Commissioners step back and take the appropriate time to have RE2 reevaluate and revise these findings. The RTA wants to hear the opinion of RE2 with regard to the circulation plan as it relates to sacrificing safety as opposed to the applicant's opinion. The existing farm cart paths, while rural and scenic in character, were designed for private farming use and their community, not modern residential development. The RE2 report also inaccurately combines the 71-acre open space transaction with this separate Ardrossan Farm Saldo application. This application and the open space agreement of sale are separate and mutually exclusive initiatives. At least that's how it's presented to the public. However, by linkage, the contingency provisions in the open space agreement of sale pose a serious conflict of interest, i.e., the open space agreement of sale is contingent on the applicant's receipt of final site plan approval of the Ardrossan farm, favorable to the applicant. Under the existing land use and land use plan of that document, the RTA disputes the applicant's opinion that it has met the goal of ensuring adequate buffering needs to the neighborhood. A lot of the RE2 report states that there are applicants' opinions, but don't state their own because they haven't had time to evaluate that and formulate that. And then the Board of Commissioners then takes that as gospel and has since, we feel, made some decisions based on applicant's opinion rather than the consultant from a third-party independent state. The application does not preserve the community and its character of the neighborhood by planning a clustered housing component nearest the existing residential neighborhoods. Less than 1 acre lots are proposed with unknown dwelling size and specifications. To date, the applicant has not presented a rendering with its application. The public is in the dark and does not know what they should expect from the developer. We just saw another party come here as a concept plan with renderings to show the Board of Commissioners and the public what they would like to do. We haven't seen one rendering of any access road, any housing to be built, or anything that has to do with this property other than a 2D site plan. So it's a little hard for us to get a grasp on a 300-acre development and all of these components that are now here before us. The RTA wishes to know what criteria RE2 uses to show that the applicant is working carefully to preserve a balance of land use to ensure adequate buffering. What criteria would RE2 use to make this determination? The RTA wants to know what is sustainable about this development. The comment was made that it is sustainable. We would like to know what is sustainable about this development. We would like to know, how does the applicant expect to preserve the community and its character if it incorporates a clustered housing element in its design? Those things tend to conflict in our viewpoint. The report references open space and neighboring property owners and use quotes that are taken out of context. This is because the consultant's response references the 71 acres of open space and not the Ardrossan farm development. Those two things should be talked about separately. And if you're talking about open space with regard to the farm, it should be the open space, the 15% plus whatever else the applicant is putting into the development, not what the township is buying from the owner and the two family trusts of Ardrossan. The applicant, and we want to know, by whose standard is the applicant's plan assuring adequate physical and spatial buffering to and between the proposed and existing land uses? The applicant has not generally reached out to the neighbors with any concessions to their plans to mitigate our concerns. Every major RTA issue has been rejected in caucus response to the Board of Commissioners. If the issue is right field open space buffering, it's looked at. If it's from the Radnor Taxpayers Association and our issues, et cetera, it's rejected out of hand. And it just is, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating to us to be treated in that fashion. Under the general planning review, the RTA finds that some of their conclusions are not consistent. No physical renderings have been made by the applicant for the public to review. So it's really difficult for us to see how RE2 can make a value judgment of how these areas are consistent, let alone support it. In item 2 of that document, which discusses internal roadways, it states that the applicant is to maintain Road E as a one-way road to the Manor House. Since all roadways, I believe, are going to be dedicated, Amy? All these roadways are going to be dedicated?
I believe there's one that is not.
Okay. Since all the roadways we thought were going to be dedicated, at least that's the way it was discussed, both at the conditional use and the planning commission, we thought that that was a misstatement and it should be to be retained, not maintained. It is the applicant's opinion only, not the township engineer or RE2, that Road E is in keeping with or wider than a number of roads in the surrounding areas and therefore suitable for design on the site, which is how they stated at the caucus meeting. It's well documented that the existing neighborhood roads are inadequate and undersized, which underserves the existing community. Designing the applicant's proposed roadways to a substandard criteria is a safety issue and poor engineering. RTA wants to know what RE2's opinion of the roadway design and circulation pattern should be, along with if it takes township engineering and or township traffic engineering as well. The waivers requested by the applicant rest on the fact that they will reduce impervious coverage and better control stormwater runoff. The total impervious coverage for the site is minimal compared to the overall 300-acre site. The RTA believes that the percent reduction in the overall impervious coverage of the site by way of waivers is negligible if calculated. The RTA wants a RE2 or the applicant to calculate the percentage of impervious coverage for the site, share that information with the Board of Commissioners and the public. We also want RE2 or the applicant to calculate what percentage of that impervious surface will be reduced by granting the waivers requested by the applicant. To have the waivers driven for acceptance based upon the fact that they're minimizing impervious coverage on a site this big for even smaller roads, is almost ludicrous. And the cost savings to the developer to be able to get waivers is substantial. So I think the driving point is dollars, not impervious surface, not stormwater control. It's actually dollar bills when it comes down to this situation. The RTA supports wholeheartedly the Planning Commission's recommendation to eliminate Road B access to Newtown Road at the Duber property. The RTA wants to hear from RE2 its position regarding the Planning Commission's recommendations to eliminate Road B access to Newtown Road at the Duber property. Is connecting Road B to Road C through the site possible? Is there anything physically or engineering-wise impractical with this type of design element? The RTA wishes to know what is the Board of Commissioners' rationales to subject the Dubers and the surrounding neighbors to such gross intrusion of privacy and reduction of quality of life by not supporting the Planning Commission's recommendation to relocate Road B access to Newtown Road. The first issue of the caveat for a condition to accept the waivers was the elimination of this Road B onto Newtown Road. It was number one at the top of the list. The Planning Commission was adamant that that had to happen. The head of the Planning Commission, she was adamant that the other 4 lots up on top of the ridge of the rye field, they needed to come back a little bit further or be totally moved. It was those 2 driving factors that even brought up the fact of approving a waiver. And the waiver for the applicant saves them substantial dollars at our expense. The RTA wishes to know what the B, I've been there. The location of Road B access for 19 homes in the northeast corner of the property near the water tower facing the Duber property across from Newtown Road, a state road, is problematic. This location infringes upon the peace, tranquility, and welfare of the Duber residents and their surrounding neighbors. Traffic, both ingress and egress, will adversely affect the Dubers and the existing community. Light pollution from vehicle headlights is just one nuisance, beside noise, access, and safety concerns. Additional shading shrubs on the Duber property is a Band-Aid fix for a severed artery. Deleting this access road in the plan runs counter to the outstanding recommended contingencies by the Planning Commission for the preliminary plan application. Based on this contingencies and others, the township would grant 25 plus waivers for the developer to forego other infrastructure items. Now, just weeks later, in a public caucus before the Board of Commissioners, the applicant stated that it is not willing to delete Road B from its plan. The residents still have a major issue with the developer's reluctance to accommodate the neighbors' obvious grievances. More particularly, the neighbors are dumbfounded by the Board of Commissioners' lack of support for the taxpayers when they have a valid concern dealing with the preservation of their community, safety, and quality of life. Stormwater management for both on-site and off-site continues to be a concern of the neighbors. Newtown Road stormwater runoff from Ardrossan Farm and the dedicated Newtown Road State Highway flows northward and causes flooding to both the Duber property, the Boylan property, the Pettit property, the Buck property, and all those other properties on Hothorpe Lane. The residents need this issue to be appropriately addressed by Salvo prior to any preliminary site plan approval. All of Newtown Road, from the wall and from the existing homes on Ardrossan Farm, whose water and stormwater all flows into Newtown Road, and all of Newtown Road, which runs for about close to almost a half a mile to a third to a half a mile. And all that cart path, all that water flows away from Ardrossan Farm and into our properties. The township has not provided any stormwater control whatsoever in that part of Mr. Spengler's ward. So we think that this is not only an on-site but an off-site improvement that needs to be addressed and looked at from engineering and what have you, and not put as a condition so that we approve these things and then go to a final approval. They need to be addressed now before a preliminary approval can be had, drawings changed, everybody come together, and everything looked at so that we can fully understand where we're going before a checklist is put together, ticked off, and then a formal site plan is approved. Historic preservation is an issue that's been ongoing. It was told that it would be looked at. It was told that it is in the works. We have not seen anything. We see nothing in any of the proposal for this resolution that has any of these issues talked about or discussed or put together as a needs list. The RTA is looking for a full accounting of historic preservation needs to be made by the developer before any approvals for development commences. Native American artifacts, archaeological stone boulder carvings are located on the site. Pre-revolutionary historic dwellings used to sit and still have remnants of General Anthony Wayne's mother's birthplace on the site. A revolutionary picket post encampment back in the 1770s mustered on the site. Historic remains are still present. And we can see the rest that's in the Radnor Historic Assets Inventory, but it should be made part and party to this developer's application and addressed and talked about transparently before we make any approval at the preliminary stage. The applicant at the caucus, I understand, and I saw some pictures on site, gave you some lovely photographs of Newtown Road with in full bloom of summer leaves and foliage when they talked about buffering and screening. You haven't seen these, so I will share my winter scenes and my early spring scenes with you so you can understand what we see when we look out our windows on Newtown Road. Can we get any close-up? Is anybody here? And yeah, thank you. And I'll just give you a kind of a, if I can, a view of, this is outside of my house at 278, and I actually face on Newtown Road, even though I'm on Hothorpe Lane. But this is to the west of this is where the Duber property and mine meet, so it'd be the west of the water tower. And as you can see, I have a wood fence, and there's a stone wall behind that. And the elevation of the property is actually above the stone wall. It's a plateau there. So not only am I going to see the roofs of the neighboring properties in the cluster homes as I look out my window, but I see the entire house, okay? And I'm going to see the entire house of 16 houses because they're staggered so that one goes in between the other, in between the other, in between, so that I lose all of that view onto, that's my view shed through here. And as you can see, all the way down the road until you hit here, which is one of the existing houses on the farm, which is the Stone Twins on Newtown Road. Here is another shot of early spring. As you can see, I can see, if I look through and I look through and I look through the grass, I can see Mr. Harrington's house all the way in the far view on the other side of our Ardrossan farm. So all of this, okay, is what I see in the winter and the springtime. A 6 to 8 foot holly bushes aren't going to change that. It may help add to that, a few of them out there, but it's not going to change the view shed that we have and the reason that we purchased our house and the views that we enjoy at the benefit of the Ardrossan farm being there. We're not against development. We're not against the developer building out the property. We just don't want to be imposed upon so drastically where we have a Levittown portion of the Ardrossan farm sitting in the corner on the northeast corner right next to our quality of life where we are. And they don't want a road to connect that Levittown to the rest of the property that's there because those would take away from some investment parcels that they might want to sell, or the view of some of the bigger and more expensive homes and lots that they wish to sell. And this whole process could have been eliminated if they had some interplay with the local residents and relocated that clustered housing to an area that was not as obtrusive to the local neighbors. We're down the road far enough that I don't think that's going to change. But we don't need a road access on Newtown Road. We don't need the Dubers' lives totally torn upside down because the developer won't bend and give some sort of understanding that they're totally devaluating these people's livelihoods by putting a road in there. It will also diminish the value of that house for resale as they sell their home sometime down the road. It totally diminishes the value of all the homes along Newtown Road by having that road there. There is a solution. I think a good planner can give you that solution. That's why I'm asking for some time to step back and take time. Let Ritu do the job that they were brought on to do. And I know they have work at Biomed, and I know they have work at Villanova, but they were engaged for this process as well. Let's let them do their job. Let's let them get back to you. Let's let them counsel and consult for you so that we have a project that can go forward that we all can live with and that we all can be happy of and, as taxpayers, be excited about for the Township of Radnor. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Borland. Is there anybody else who would like to comment?
Good evening. My name's Colleen Price, and I live at 536 Atterbury Road. I'm just here again about the Duber Road. There is a very easy solution. They actually showed it on their plan. I think for emergency access, they're going to have to put in some sort of a dirt road. If they closed off, even if they kept Road B, they need to have another road that can go to the main entrance that comes out at the main entrance of Ardrossan. If they just widen that a little bit, you can get all those people through there with really no effort on the part of the developer, just making that road a little bit wider. I don't have the plan in front of me, but I don't think it's all that difficult. And, you know, the Dubers, not that zoning obviously is ever set, but it is kind of like a social contract. You know, people move in and they expect, what am I going to get? I'm moving into an R1 or an R2 or an R4. You kind of know what you're going to spend because of what you get next to you. You know, these people moved in next to something where they should have gotten 2-acre zoning. They're getting 3/4 of an acre zoning, and the way it's staggered, it's even tighter than that from what they're going to see. And I don't think there's any reason to put all that burden on them. And I don't know if you know Mrs. Buck, who lives on that street. She bought her neighbor's properties just to put deed restrictions on them so that there wouldn't be a lot of development. So these are people who have done a beautiful job. Hothorpe is wide and open and underdeveloped because they did the right thing. And to really kind of give them a slap in the face by putting that road entrance right, whether it's facing into her 4-foot wall or a little bit, you know, to the right of that, it's definitely going to change the impact of that beautiful neighborhood. And if you just make them bang a left like they're going to do anyhow and make that road a little wider, it could, you know, solve all the problems. My other question, too, is I appreciate that you're going to make the buffer denser everywhere. I mean, you can see what he's seeing here. You know, they don't want to see this development any more than you want to see it on the rye field. And I think there has been a different approach because I understand the whole idea of buying the rye field was to keep that area open. It's now public land. We are protecting it. And it should be the same protections for the neighbors who are there as well as the rye field. So if we just extend that, I think that'd be great. I think you've made a lot of steps to do that, and I appreciate it. And the other issue is I've walked that trail a lot. I've actually passed you when I'm walking it. I walk to the Willows from my house on Atterbury. It's wide enough. There's only one area that's a little tight. Most of it's a good 3 feet wide. So there's no problem in terms of putting in a footpath along it. And what Mr. Fisher said, you know, they are basically getting like $1.5 million here. So I don't see why that would be difficult to require whatever it takes to put it in, whether it's bollards and up to paving. You don't have to say they would do paving, but up to paving, so you could get that kind of money escrowed. And he's saying, he's getting that he's getting that $1.5 million concession because he's only building on 40% of the land, but we still have that big hole in the middle. We've got 100 acres. We have no idea what's going on in there. So you don't have 40% of development. You don't even know what the development is going to be. And my last question is just, I don't know much about stormwater. I know we have some engineers here, but at least where that cluster is, I can't believe you don't have to do any stormwater management as a developer, and that they're going to leave it up to each property owner. So that to me, I think, is like a big hole. I don't know what you do about stormwater management. It's clearly over my head, but I think that really should be just looked into. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Colleen. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak?
Hi, Phil Graham, 724 Newtown Road. Can we turn on the projector, please? And home in on that, if we may. I will come to that in just a second, but I'd like to address a couple of other things. First of all, and I'm not going to be very long, so you'll be relieved to know. You were, right at the end, you were talking about the possibility of putting a pathway on the outside. And that was to be a condition down Newtown Road. Well, I know that that ain't going to happen, because there's a 20-foot ravine at one point, and the width must be maximum 10 feet. The only way that pathway will happen is if it goes inside the wall or the wall is moved back. So adding that condition, I assure you, it has absolutely no value. It really doesn't. You would have to insist that a small part of the property, at least in one place, is encroached upon. I think during your discussions it was confirmed that there are approximately 2 miles internally of new roads, not the 1 mile that was estimated. Mr. Phillips, was it not 2 miles inside of new roads?
I don't have that number. Mr. Fiorello may have that length.
But it's certainly, I mean, I heard you, I saw you going too, so I assumed that you were trying to correct Mr. Fisher and say it wasn't 1, it was 2. So
I wasn't doing that to Mr. Fisher. I was having a quick conversation with Mr. Fiorello here about that.
Okay, my point is I think it probably is an awful lot more money they're saving.
Well, yeah, and well, I did strike it off myself using the scale drawing here, and it's not. I mean, I would argue it's closer to 1 mile.
Okay.
But again, I don't have a scale with me to do this. I can easily do it if you hand me a scale.
It's not important.
I'm not going to reiterate the things that Mr. Boylan said, but I'm behind him 100%. But there are 1 or 2 other things that were have been completely forgotten. Nobody has pursued the idea of carving a road into Derby Paoli Road. It's just been dismissed. Nobody's thought about it or explored that possibility. It's all very well to say, well, existing lanes are in dangerous positions. Well, there's a lot of money going into this, and it is possible to build a road further down, not necessarily opposite sawmills, somewhere down there that can go directly across into a different part of the development, which would add to the safety because you'd have additional access, and it would also relieve some of the pressure of traffic on Newtown Road, which is currently all channeling into Newtown Road. Only 6 of the 7 conditions that the Planning Commission added have been considered, and the 7th was completely I had to look back at the last meeting because I just couldn't believe it. At 3 hours, 5 minutes into the August 18th meeting here, Mr. Snyder said, the idea of moving the village, oh, sorry, I should actually say that in the Planning Commission's recommendations was, apart from the screening, that the applicant relocate the village farther away from Newtown Road. That's in addition to increasing the buffer. Now that was completely dismissed. You guys just seemed to think that wasn't necessary. Mr. Snyder said the idea of moving the village really doesn't do anything because it's still on that same flat plateau. So we don't think that there is any need or justification for moving the village. That's what he said in direct contradiction to what the Planning Commission were recommending. And the reason I put this here is because I've highlighted the contours. That little area here is the plateau. That's at 430 feet. And you can see I've written on here 420, 410, 400, 390. You can see it quite clearly, goes downhill into a valley and then back up the other side to Mr. Harrington's house across here. These 7 houses could be relocated as far in as you want to put them. Twist them round, do what you want, stick them down the middle in somewhere in this 100 and something or other acres, which is unused or investment lots or whatever. Every few feet it's moved inwards, it goes further out of sight. And last time I said, well, yeah, just move it a few feet and suddenly you get a big sky. But it's not just the fact that you're getting a bigger sky. If it goes further in, it goes downhill. It goes further down the hill. Why was that condition completely dismissed? And my final point is Mr. Snyder did also promise at the end of one of the meetings, I believe it was a Planning Commission meeting, that there would be a full report on historic assets and anything else that may be there, whether it's Native American artifacts or whatever. I brought this in because this was handed to me last summer, by somebody who happens to be writing an anniversary story on the Philadelphia story. And she was doing some exploration with permission, I gather, and she came across an overturned tree. And in its roots, one tree, in its roots, this is what she found. Now, it looks like a bunch of rocks, but she assures me, and this is a professor of humanities from one of the big Philadelphia colleges, she assures me that there are skin scrapers, and axe heads and all sorts of other things which are Native American artifacts. Now, they were found in this one tree root. According to the Pennsylvania Archaeological Site identification criteria, if you find 2 or more flakes and/or other culturally modified items in adjacent shovel tests spaced no more than 15 meters apart, this represents a site. 5 or more finished tools recovered within an acre, 5 within an acre, indicate the presence of a site. This was in one tree root, and you can see quite clearly there are more than 5 items there. And this was without any digging. They were all on the surface, hanging out of the tree root. She believes this to be a Native American sacred site. Now, this is just apocryphal, but she does have credentials, and all I want to say is that really this needs to be investigated. And along with the revolutionary artifacts that we know are probably in the field, in the main field, the whole area stands or is in danger of being ruined, covered forever without any investigation whatsoever. We need to call in some professionals to take a look at it, step back, and do something about it now before it's gone forever. And I think that concludes my points. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Graham. Would anybody else like to speak?
Just one very quick question. If the roads that have been proposed for this development are undersized, will they be one-sided parking in their development?
I believe no parking.
There's no parking on the roads at all? Oh, good. Well, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Tim Boylan again from Hothorpe Lane. The Radnor Taxpayers Association would like comments from you on the questions that we put to you, and can we expect to get some sort of written response from that?
I think we'll have continued discussion, yes.
Okay. And if not from you, from the planner, for you or for your benefit?
I'm not sure we'll call the planner up, but we'll see how the discussion goes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. During the gardening season, which starts in March and ends in December, I travel Newtown Road probably 5 or 6 times a week. And I have mulled over in my mind why one of the initial requirements wasn't for a walking trail. Somehow to get from the Willows to begin to get towards Conestoga Road, because of the consequence of it not having been asked before. It was asked once during the conditional hearing that I heard, and I came to every meeting, was that the Atterbury property was told they had to do it. So, okay, let's do it. So I have watched this road very, very carefully all summer and have looked at it. There are 2 places, one that has a small hump, so the road would be quite narrow, and the other is where there is what I'm going to call a cattle gate, which I'm not an engineer, but I think comes into the buffer. And at that point, the hillside gets very steep. And so I think in practicality, you should request that in the rye field and in the 100-foot buffer, that the trail could be inside the wall. So I've also brought this photograph. This is in Camden County, New Jersey. It's along the Cooper River, and they have a terrific park system, and they're redoing their trails. This is the roadway. These are concrete blocks. Here you can see there's an elevation, rock to gravel to the pathway, and this is how they're dividing the bikers, the walkers, the skateboarders, whatever, from the road. And I think it's a pretty nifty system. About every 14 inches, there's a break. You can see them. This allows the water to flow down. And so it seems to me it's not a very expensive. It wouldn't necessarily have to be macadam. They did macadam. But I showed it to Steve. I took this photograph and sent it to Steve, and he said it almost warranted a field trip to go look at this, because it's a nice way to keep the public safe and the road to go along.
How tall are those bricks?
They're about
6 inches.
6 inches. And they're not brick, they're formed concrete. So I just wanted to put that up as if there's a will, there's a way to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
I will be brief. My name is Chester D. Harrington. My home is at 757 Newtown Road, Villanova. Our land is directly connected to the Ardrossan farmland, facing the Camp Woods historical ground. that was an outpost of George Washington's army in 1776, 77. I'd like to put up 2 photographs here. If you could zero in on those, maybe a little bit. That's the view from my house, looking at the historic ground that was the outpost of Washington's army. And I encourage the board and others to look at the book that's just been written on the War of the Revolution in Radnor, 1777, 1778. It's a very interesting historical book. The trustees of the Ardrossan estate seem to ignore the historic value of the acreage involved. I think the Radnor Historical Society should direct more interest in this property because of the artifacts buried on the space. That is considered to become a village of cluster homes. The breakup of historic land and the traffic problem that will result are a major safety problem and need to be addressed by the state PennDOT and local traffic committees. I have talked with Representative Adolph, and I think you're aware of it, that he is, wants to have PennDOT come in and do a study on that particular property. The egress and access to Newtown Road from 6 entry roads is a detriment to the neighbors who require entry to the local neighborhoods, and as it's well confirmed that that road is a constant speedway and can be measured, and the police will back me up because they know the difference because they've been in my driveway taking the tests on the cars going by. Therefore, the Radnor Taxpayers Associates request a formal study of all traffic conditions of land contiguous to the Ardrossan proposal for building. There could be 71 to 80 houses on the land in question. I think we've been threatened with the fact that maybe there could be 150. I doubt it. The Ward 3 taxpayers are most directly affected by the density modification that would drastically change the lifestyle of the largest group involved in a recent land acquisition of the Radnor Township. The Radnor Board of Commissioners have a legal obligation to represent the common interest in land appropriation, to acknowledge the rights of our citizens. We, the Radnor taxpayers, insist that the ethics of your office adhere to these principles. I thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. Would anybody else like to speak?
My name is Dawn Shork. I live at 529 Atterbury Road. I've been coming to all these meetings for a very long time, and I have yet to see a rendering of what this is going to look like. Nobody knows what it's going to look like. We're assured that there are like-minded investors. I've looked at investment properties. I've never seen only drawings that are so sketchy, no board approvals, everything's theoretical. It's hard to imagine there are really like-minded investors with so little actual to look at. Either it exists and it's not being shown, or it doesn't exist at all. But either way, to make decisions without that is premature, and it's just not prudent. I can start with what you were discussing at the beginning of this conversation about the walkways. The applicant clearly stated he would not allow the walkways inside the wall. There was no reason then that PennDOT cannot be approached to discuss the viability of having the walkway outside the wall. It's a black and white. They're going to say yes or no. If it can be outside the wall, then we can move forward with that knowledge that it can be outside the wall. But to grant waivers, not knowing whether or not, you're giving a concession, and then down the line, you may get nothing in return for it. Very likely we'll get nothing in return for it. As far as connecting trailways, was there any cost analysis done on the feasibility of connecting the trailways if there are egresses on Darby Paoli versus all of them being on Newtown Road? Because if you are trying to get from the Willows, from Skunk Hollow, and there are no entrances into this property, but you're going to connect it to Newtown Road. It seems to me, a non-engineer, it's going to be much more expensive for the township to do it that way than if you look at the viability of doing it through alternatives. So at least look at the alternatives before granting waivers and agreeing to the plans that are very limited, which are in front of you. And then lastly, I was on the phone today with Radnor Transportation about the bus service, school bus service. Radnor buses will not turn down Atterbury, not all of them, because Atterbury Road is considered too small for them to effectively do their routes. I find it interesting that we're considering making roads that are smaller than Atterbury Road, and so you're going to have the same problem with the school buses going into this development. I'm told that my children have to stand out on Newtown Road now to get onto the bus. I'm also told by Radnor's own transportation department that it's too dangerous for them to stand on Newtown Road, that I should sit in my car and wait for the bus. Except I work full-time. I can't sit in the car and wait for that. So they'd have to stand on someone else's property. It's hard to imagine that you're talking about a situation where your own transportation department is saying that it's too dangerous for the children to stand there, and you're just going to add more and more traffic without considering alternatives for where are these school buses going to go, how are we going to effectively and safely get our children from place to place. And you're talking about putting footpaths, which is wonderful, but you're putting people at absolute risk. There's not a doubt in my mind that something's going to happen. So I strongly encourage you to look at the alternatives and ask ahead of time. Ask PennDOT. Ask for renderings. Ask for pictures. Ask for a whole lot more than you're getting right now before you go ahead granting waivers. We elected you guys to do this, not to give waivers. We elected you to look at all the details and the best way to represent your taxpayers.
Thank you very much. Anyone else that would like to speak tonight? Okay, so I think there's some more discussion to be had. I have a list of things that I was jotting down while things came up, and I can go through them unless somebody else wants to go first.
I'd like to go first, if I can. So I've had, after hearing a lot from the public concerning the waivers and the trail, I have had a chance to recalculate the internal roads on the site using my pinky. And it is about 2 miles. So the savings, now some of the roads don't have waivers, some of the roads have curbs and stormwater, but most of the roads don't have curbs and stormwater. And the savings is anywhere from $150 to $200 a lineal foot, and we're looking at about 10,000 feet, and this is $2 to $3 million of savings. So I understand the rationale for the reason not to do all these things, and I think it's great. I think that we're going to reduce the impact of the development on the community in terms of stormwater. And I recognize the fact that the homeowners or the property owners who intend to buy these parcels don't want curbs, they don't want sidewalks. At least at the moment they don't. They don't realize what they don't want. But anyway, the applicant has agreed to do a trail, a footpath along Newtown Road. But I think in the context of what was just said, the fact that PennDOT could make a decision that basically would wipe away this improvement that the residents deserve as a result of this development makes no sense to me. That's not a good deal for anyone. So I think it would be in our best interest if the applicant is willing to accept and agree that if in fact PennDOT does not approve this footpath amenity to the road, that the applicant would agree to contribute the value of that, the value of the construction of that, to the township, so the township may construct a path through the Wheeler and Quarry tracks. So the point is, we'll get some trail system out of it if it can't be done on the roadside. I want to stress that in my experience, I don't believe PennDOT approve that trail alongside that road, because unless there's curbing installed, and if we do curbing, then there needs to be stormwater. We're looking at a 3,000-foot long piece. So again, the value here, the savings is in the millions, 2 to 3 million. It's an estimate. But if we said, what if we captured some percentage of that savings and put it towards this path system, and also to ensure that there's adequate screening and buffering along that roadway. I want to make sure that no matter what happens, that there's money set aside to make sure the trail system's done, and also that there's adequate screening done along that road. I would recommend that we take, say, 10, 15% of that value of that savings and make that as an earmark. I think it should be more than that. I think it should be on the order of $500,000. I think that would be a reasonable number for the cost of construction of a trail that's 3,000 feet long. I mean, we know that these trails can cost a few $100s a foot. So, I would peg it at $500,000. So I don't know if the applicant wants to respond to that right now, but I think this board, in everyone's best interest, would ask that the applicant agree that if that trail cannot be inserted along the road between the wall and the roadway, because PennDOT won't approve it that way, then we have some other recourse for investing that money into a trail system. And then maybe someday the property owners that actually own these parcels will agree to doing a trail on the inside, or maybe there's a trail throughout the entire development that gets connected. But I think it's, at least for me, I'm not going to support this development. I won't vote in favor of this unless that money is set aside and unless we put a dollar amount on it, because I think we're fools in a negotiation that has no dollar amount set. And I think the applicant is very savvy if they don't get that number set. So that's my comment.
Well, we can put, first of all, I think that's a good point about whether there may be sections that PennDOT doesn't approve and sections that they do approve. So the ask would be the value of the sections of the construction of the sections of the trail that are not approved. I don't know that we need a dollar value tonight for preliminary.
I think, actually, I'd argue that we do.
I mean, we're not going to be able to come up with that tonight.
Maybe John can help us out here, but the way I understand it, that if we don't set the condition tonight, if we don't put a dollar amount on it tonight, then if that value diminishes between now and the approval, we're getting nothing for the residents said it really well, and I appreciate everyone that came out tonight, because we basically are making a deal. There's a deal here, and in exchange for waiving 5 requirements of a roadway, 4 requirements, what are we getting in exchange? What does the township get in exchange for this? And the other thing I want to remind all of us is that the John stated at the last caucus that he intended that all of these roads would in fact be dedicated to the township at some point. Okay, that means we're inheriting these roads. These are not their roads; they're ours. So, get the money set aside. If we're not going to require curbs, stormwater, and proper road widths, then we need to get the money set aside, because I think we're giving away way too much at this farm.
Just to comment on Commissioner Fisher's suggestion. I mean, there's a value that Roger or Amy or someone could put on a trail along Newtown Road from the point, the edge of the property, down to where it would connect into the rye field. So that number you can defer to final plan approval. I mean, the condition ought to be, if that's where you want to go, is that number gets determined by the township engineer, and that is, for whatever reason, physical restraints, PennDOT won't approve it, that value then gets put towards your other. There is a trail plan proposed for Wheeler and Quarry, so it would have to go towards that, unless it could be done on Newtown Road. I mean, that would be the way to deal with it. You don't have a number tonight. I really wouldn't want to put a number on it tonight until
that's fine.
Your engineers look at it. But
I agree. The language could be, the value determined by the township engineer. So,
Okay. Well, I want to first say thank you to everyone who's participated in this process for the several years that it's happened. This has, I think, been very respectful and thoughtful participation, and I think it has been meaningful. I think it, from the beginning, has helped direct the process. I understand the neighbors' frustration and disappointment. I'm disappointed too. I mean, we all got used to that beautiful piece of open space that was preserved for 100 years by this family. So, but alas, development is occurring. So I wrote down some of those, some of the concerns I heard that I could address, certainly not all of them. And I'll just tick through them with my responses, my own personal responses. It was noted that the Delco recommendations, the County Planning Commission recommendations, were not on the website. I don't know myself where to find them on the website. I haven't looked for them there, but they are in the packet from today. So if you called up today's meeting packet, they're in there. They were in the packet for our last meeting as well. So if you are still looking for them and want to see them, they're on the website in the packets. Why did we not move Road B? They're in the packet we got, which is the packet that's posted, so I believe they're there. Why did we not move Road B? Well, you know, we all put a lot of thought into this. Before the 18th meeting, when we had our caucus, we received notification from PennDOT that they discourage combining access roads, and they rejected the notion of diverting all traffic through, you know, a larger exit point, and that was meaningful to me. And so if there was not really an option of eliminating that road. It would be moving it a few feet this way, a few feet that way. And given the information that we were given, that it did not line up with directly with a driveway, my decision was based on doing the best that we could in that situation. Road B has to go somewhere, and it can't go where the access already is. PennDOT rejected that notion. The additional buffers, there was a comment made that we didn't listen to Planning Commission about the buffers except for the Ryfield, and that's mistaken. During the caucus, we were given a new tree mitigation plan, and it addressed the Ryfield, but it also addressed Newtown Road and the private access, the the private road. And the Newtown Road, in the initial plantings, there were 35 evergreens proposed, and in the ameliorated one, it was 60. The private road on the side went from 24 to 79, and the rye field went from 99 to 200 and something. So I found that I was very satisfied with that, and the quality of the tree plantings changed with a lot more evergreen and interspersed for all year round buffering. The impervious, there was a comment made that allowing the waivers wouldn't really make a difference in impervious coverage, and I really beg to differ there. Road coverage, curb coverage, for that many miles is a great deal of impervious coverage. We are avoiding a great deal of impervious coverage by allowing those waivers. I don't have the square footage, but it is a great deal. You can tell by how much it costs to construct it that it is a great deal of space. The historic assets study that was, frankly, I'm not aware that was promised. That was never a part of our discussion. So I fully believe that we should continue, no matter who owns that land, to try and monitor and discover what the historic underpinnings are. But we all live on Native American ground. We all live on historic land. So, you know, I think it's very important that we continue to try and pinpoint where the most historic and most interesting spots are. But I don't think that's a basis for telling a private landowner that they can't develop. And the view sheds, you know, it's true. There are people's view sheds are going to change. And I mean, I think calling a Levittown is unfair. I think these are going to be beautiful homes. It's not going to be a Levittown. But no matter where these houses go, there is going to be people's view sheds are going to be changed. And there's no way to develop a property of this size without changing the community. We've been very lucky to have it for 100 years. There is no other piece of attractive property that lasted this long. And finally, the renderings point, you know, when you go through the land development process, the renderings of the homes is not part of it. Where this is the subdivision of the land. And my understanding is that these homes will be developed and designed by the homeowners. So I don't think those would be available in any case. So those are just a few of my responses. I feel for this community. I feel for everyone who drives on Newtown Road, which I do every day. There is going to be change. And we've tried to minimize it. There are 62 new homes going on as opposed to what could have happened. We've worked very hard to preserve a portion of it, the portion that is in a view of the most people in this community. 3,000 people a day drive by that, drive on Darby Paley Road. And that's what we had in mind when we made the decision to preserve that section of the property. So those are my comments, if anybody else would like to join in.
So number one, we have a planning consultant now, but I don't think for any of us, the purpose of bringing the planning consultant in was to sort of have unilateral authority to assign certain portions of the project. So we have a process, it's years in the making. We'll listen to the input, but I don't know that if the consultant told us to relocate one road versus another, that I would be inclined to relocate it solely on the basis of the consultant. The rendering part, I don't have an answer to that. I'd be interested to know if Mr. Snyder would be able to provide, and that might be easy. So I don't know.
It is easy. There are no plans for the houses. The houses, these are lots. This is a subdivision of lots. They are going to be bought by owners who are going to then hire architects and build their own individual houses. This isn't a tract house. This isn't a developer project where there are 4 styles that you're selling to people. These are individual lots, and every house is going to be designed by that owner's architect. So we have no renderings of any of them.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Does that apply to the cluster?
So the next item for me is that my sense is if you start moving one road here and there, we're just going to be into the same problem with another neighbor, another situation. So my sense is that this has been a process. It's had a lot of input, and I'm not hesitant or I'm not comfortable at this point changing the location of roads. And then I'm also sensitive to the developer's position that part of what they're getting for the waivers is reduced development. I think that that's accurate, and I think that's part of what the community wants. So on balance, I anticipate supporting it tonight. And I think we can get the item that Commissioner Fisher identified with the, I don't think we should put a number in it tonight because I don't think we can come to a number, but that can be something that can be put in as a concept and reevaluated in final plan, as I understand it.
Yeah, and let me just explain that. We're going to have to escrow for all of the improvements, and there's a process in the state law for how you do that. It's incorporated in your own ordinance as well. We provide the plans. The engineers estimate the cost of it. If there's a dispute, they bring in another engineer who then settles the dispute. But there's a system for how you come to the cost of what is then escrowed for the improvements in a development.
So we would, as I understood John Rice, we would have a number at final plan. And if the developer disagreed with the number, that could be a basis for us to deny the final plan, because we have the concept established.
Well, you're gonna have a number from your engineer at final, before you vote on final plan approval. And if, and I don't expect there to be a disagreement, but let's say there is a disagreement, then your decision at that point is to attach that condition or not. Okay. At that number that your engineer gives you. And if Mr. Snyder believes that that's an incorrect number, he's got other remedies at that point.
Do we have this, John, would you like to amend your condition? You had stated a condition earlier tonight. We wanted to include that the applicant, in the event that PennDOT does not approve construction of the walking path along the entire length of Newtown Road between the roadway and the wall, the applicant agrees to contribute the value determined by the township engineer?
Right. I mean, I wrote it down a second time as we were.
I believe that, and the essence of what I said is the way it should read.
Yes.
I don't agree with that. If PennDOT disallows portions of it, that's the same thing as saying no path. So I think that would be not very much help in the goal of what we're trying to do here. So does the applicant have a response to that? I mean, it seems like apples and apples to me. You've agreed to do a walking path along the road, but if PennDOT comes along and says you can't do it because of these reasons, you would agree to contribute the value of that walking path as determined by the township engineer.
I thought that had been resolved.
Right.
Well, I just want to make sure that
Right.
Okay, so you were in agreement.
Yeah, and you know, the township engineer will have to come up with that number in between now and final, I'm sure. The landowner's engineer and our engineer will look at the number. But it's the full value of the path along Newtown Road outside of the wall, and a contribution of that if PennDOT doesn't approve that pathway. And we're talking about from the edge of the property down to connecting it into the township's mode path on the rye field.
Thank you.
Would be the additional language for that paragraph 3.
I'm sufficiently persuaded by the Radnor Taxpayers Association that there are questions and issues that remain unresolved, and therefore that we should table or postpone or delay this approval tonight.
Well, I've spent 25 years trying to preserve as much as Radnor as we could. I was here in 1970 when we purchased Skunk Hollow for $300,000. I was here when we purchased the property where the Kreuzberg Center is. And the last 23 years, I led the way to purchase 13 parcels of land where they were going to build houses in Radnor that are now open space. And I spent a lot of time trying to preserve as much of Ardrossan as we can. Would love to preserve the whole thing. That didn't work out. So I led the way to preserve as much as we could. I only won my election by 9 votes last time because a lot of people don't want to spend the money. They want to preserve any of Ardrossan. But as this plan has developed, to me, it's the minimum that we could have. I agree with all the waivers. I think the road should be smaller. I think we should have swales, stormwater management, and this is a good opportunity to do this. This is not a through development. This is a development that's contained, just like Ravenscliff, Round Hill, Invery, and a lot of other developments. So I'm tonight ready to vote for the preliminary approval.
Is there anybody else who'd like to comment?
Yeah, I take exception to some of the comments that have been made tonight that we have not considered certain things. We have considered every comment that the Radnor Taxpayers Association has made. We have considered all the input from our various boards, including the Planning Commission and especially the Shade Tree Commission on the planning buffers. I didn't hear one thing tonight that I would consider new or necessitating any further delay. And the bottom line, you have to, and it seems to keep getting forgotten, is the landowner has a right to develop their land. Our job is to try, to the extent practicable, to minimize the impacts on the community. I think we've done that. I think this could have been a whole lot worse. And everything you've brought up, we have discussed with the applicant, I guarantee. So I'm ready to vote for the preliminary approval.
John, just a question. Do we need to incorporate your language concerning the footpath in this resolution?
Based on, assuming you pass this, I will redo that page and add that sentence which I read to paragraph 3. Yeah.
Well, do we need to amend it by motion is what I'm saying tonight. I know, just to be formal about this.
Well, we've modified it once. Yes, you should go ahead and amend it again.
Did we?
I don't think anyone moved.
Yeah, I'll move to adopt Solicitor Rice's amendment concerning the trail and to include the sentiment of my comment and also to John Rice's comment.
Second.
Commissioner Higgins, did you have any comments in general or
Yes, I
about
do.
the amendment?
In general, not about the
Yeah, you didn't get a chance.
Well, I do sympathize with the residents. I know you've been to many, many meetings. You've hired consultants, lawyers, I assume, and you have some valid points. But the problem here I have is we live in a free enterprise society. We cannot stop development. We can regulate it. And in Pennsylvania, Delaware County, and Radnor Township, in my judgment, we have a most comprehensive scheme of regulations. I've lived in the South. I know what it's like when you want to develop property in the South. Basically, go ahead. Not here. We regulate setbacks, height limitations, density. In this case, we're allowing more density in order to retain the semi-rural character of this property. They're going to try, or will, in fact, keep as much space possible as open and green. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm really not moved by somebody that says that they are going to have their view of open space interfered with. I don't own my neighbor's airspace. If there's an empty lot there and my neighbor wants to put a house there, I don't have the right. I guess I can buy the property away from him, but I don't have the right to say, no, you can't build. As to the Native American artifacts, if we stop this developer and say you've got to go out and do an environmental impact statement, then every homeowner in Radnor needs to be subjected to that same requirement. Maybe I do. Maybe I've got Lenape artifacts on my property. So we can't impose that on this developer. It's not equal protection of the laws. I don't think you advance the cause of persuasion when you refer to this as a possible Levittown. It just doesn't move me. But again, I sympathize with your positions. You have valuable properties. I don't agree that this development will denigrate or result in a diminution of anybody's property values. On the other hand, I think it will be the other way. I think it will enhance things. It's a shame we can't preserve it forever, but it's progress. We can't stop the march of time. And lastly, I think it's been exhaustively reviewed by our Planning Commission, our Shade Tree Commission. I think you've been to the Zoning Hearing Board for something? Not zoning hearing. Not zoning, okay.
Conditional use.
Conditional use, you had a full hearing with Mr. Bola presiding in that. And our caucus and our reviews as the ultimate stop here has occurred too. So I'm going to vote for preliminary approval.
Okay, right now there is a motion simply with an amendment on the floor that's been seconded. So I'm going to call the vote on just that amendment, which was adding the language to Section 3 regarding the footpath, as read to us by John Rice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes 7-0. Now would someone like to move to approve the preliminary approval as amended? The resolution as amended.
I'll move the approval of the resolution as amended.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passes 6-1. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will see you for final approval in a few weeks. Next, we have community development. Commissioner Curley, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Finance and audit, Commissioner Fisher. Parks and recreation, Commissioner Nagel.
Yeah, two quick things. Fireworks and a grease band on the 20th over at the Willows. And then the senior center is having a active aging day on the 23rd. They do this outside. It's a combination of a health fair, healthy living. There's a lot of vendors there, and I've gone in the past and because I'm a senior. And it was a very nice day. And when's the cell tower? Next week? 2 weeks. Watch the news for the discussion of cell towers, presentation in front of, I think it's the 16th. A presentation to the Parks and Rec Board by the vendors that are proposing to build cell towers in our township.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Nagel. Library, Commissioner Booker, do you have anything?
Nothing other than our next board meeting will be 9/18, September 18th, so I'll have a report after that.
Public Health, Commissioner Nagel? Anything?
They haven't met all summer. They will be meeting next week or 2 weeks. And we will be discussing some of the items that have built up over the summer, including herbicide pesticides.
Okay. Any old business?
There's a rumor going around that on the consent agenda someday, we're going to change the time that you can knock on doors from 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And now that we're going to get to daylight saving times, I don't think people should knock on doors after 8 o'clock. So
You're just never going to give up on that, Bill.
I'd love to see that on the consent agenda. I'd love to see the commissioners support that.
Okay, that's a rumor swirling around.
It's a self-interest. Bill feels if he's allowed to go out, he has to go out.
No.
So if we constrain
All right, any other old business?
It's not fair to knock on door 10.
No, I never go out after dark.
Any public participation? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Will we adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.